I'm Cindy Jerome, and it is my privilege to serve as your town and town school district moderator. Can you hear me in the back? Apparently not. Can you hear me in the back now? Yes, thank you. Because both the town meeting and the school district meeting are warned for 10 a.m., I will call both meetings to order. This year, the town meeting will occur first, and so I will recess the school district portion until the conclusion of the town meeting. The 2014 Dummerston Town Meeting and Town School District meeting are hereby called to order. The school district meeting is recessed until the conclusion of the town meeting. Please rise for the salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to begin today with an invocation that originated in Danville, Vermont. We are gathered today in civil assembly. We gather as a community in the oldest sense of the word. We gather to come together and try to make decisions about what is right, about what is wrong. Let us advocate for our positions, but not at the expense of others. Let us remember that there is an immense gap between saying, I am right, and saying, I believe I am right. And that our neighbors with whom we disagree are good people with hopes and dreams as true and as high as ours. And let us always remember that in the end, caring for each other in this community is of far greater importance than any difference we may have. Which prompts me to thank the many of you who have inquired about my son, Ben, who was hit by a truck in Thailand 3.5 months ago. And it was very scary, but he's doing very well. And I so appreciate the support I got from so many of you. Thank you. We have lost some members of our community in the last year. I will read their names, and then we'll have a brief moment of silence. Patricia Munson, Joe Greenhoe, Betty Karg, Jeremy Howman, George Houghton, Kevin Goygan O'Brien, Elizabeth Sorensen, Ernie Clark, Sally Olmstead, Edith Roberts, Scott Ethier, Margaret Berry, Juanita Shannon, Gaylord Shaw, Sherilyn Nichols, and Esther Falk. Who remembers how Esther got to town meeting one year when there was a lot of snow? Tell us, Bess.
Esther knocked it out her driveway, and I think she was meeting Connie. And she could not get out her driveway because of the snowstorm. So I'm not sure who in the town went down in the front end loader and loaded Esther into the bucket. And she came riding out of her road with her lights dangling and sitting in the bucket to get to town meeting.
That was a good day. So a moment of silence. Thank you. Let's acknowledge and thank the scores of people who work to make our town as special as it is. On pages 2 and 3 of your town report, all our elected and appointed officials are listed. If your name appears there, or if you serve on our road crew, our volunteer fire department, or rescue squad, please stand. Come on, come on. Thank you. I'll remind you of the Adopt a Book program in the school library. They will be open all day. On the table in the back, there's a short survey from our local hospitals. It asks about your health concerns and will be used in updating the community needs assessment. During other business at the end of town meeting, I know there are several other people who want to call attention to other things that are available to you today. This meeting is being audio taped by the town clerk and recorded by Brattleboro Community Television for broadcast on Comcast and Southern Vermont Cable. Is that right, Fred? Thank you. Channel 10. Please put your cell phones on vibrate. In order to speak, you must be a registered Dummerston voter. It is our tradition, however, to make an exception for certain individuals. If there's no objection, I will allow our school principal, Joe Carroll Ratty, our school district superintendent, Ron Staley, and the school district business administrator, Frank Rucker, to speak. I'll give the same privilege to our legislators and our governor if he shows up, and we'll interrupt our proceedings when they arrive so that they may present their reports and answer your questions. You also must be a registered Dummerston voter to vote on any issue today. If there's a division of the House where we stand to indicate our vote as yea or nay, please make sure that if you're not a registered voter, you're not counted. We'll break for lunch around noon. It's provided by the good folks at the Grange, headed by Larry Lynch Jr. The cost is still $7 for adults and $4 for children. If you have difficulty standing, you have the option of holding up a card when a division of the House is called. Please raise your hand now if you would like a card. Great. Jesse or Bram, could you bring this to Mary Lou? Thank you. Anybody else? You know who Mary Lou is? Right there. Thanks. Pam McFadden, our town clerk, has prepared a very nice summary of the rules of town meeting. Copies are on the chairs, and I encourage you to familiarize yourself with it. A few highlights. Robert's Rules of Order govern town meeting. All motions and remarks should be addressed to the moderator. To speak, raise your hand, and when recognized, please wait for the microphone so everyone can hear you, and start by stating your name. I will interrupt you if you don't, sorry. We have several young civil servants today running the microphones to speakers. Bram Tabachnik and Jesse Jerome Wren are here this morning. Thank you, guys. I ask the members of our Board of Civil Authority to be ready to count if a division of the House is requested. My job is to help you, the voters, accomplish your will. If you're not sure how to do something, ask me. There are a few errors in the town report. Select Board Chair Zeke Goodband will review them when he presents the budget. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And now to the town portion of the meeting. You'll find the warning on page 58 of your town report. Article 1 refers to the election of town officers by Australian ballot and so requires no action by this body. The polls are open now and until 7 p.m. Article 2, to act on the auditor's report of the town accounts. Is there a motion?
Madam Moderator, I move we accept the auditor's report of the town accounts.
Is there a second? By Steve, thank you. It has been moved and seconded that we accept the auditor's report of the town accounts. Any debate? All in favor of the motion to accept the auditor's report of the town accounts signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed say no. You have passed the motion to accept the auditor's report of the town accounts. Article 3, to see if the voters will vote to authorize its select board to appoint a receiver of current and delinquent taxes. Is there a motion?
Madam Moderator, I move that we authorize our select board to appoint a receiver of current and delinquent taxes.
And a second?
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the voters authorize the select board to appoint a receiver of current and delinquent taxes. I believe some explanation is called for with this article.
I'd like.
Do you want to stand up here? Do you want to use that mic?
Stand
Right
up.
here? Okay.
So, can you hear me? Okay. More or less. I'll sign for those who can't hear me. Last year, the legislature passed a bill that eliminated the elected position of collector of current taxes. They forgot to tell us about this, but this mandated that the towns include a one-time article on the town meeting warning to state that, shall the town choose to have its town treasurer act as the collector of current taxes? We found out about this late yesterday afternoon. So we didn't have time to change the warning for Article 3. So I'm going to make a motion that we eliminate the portion of Article 3 that refers to the collector of current taxes, but go ahead and vote on the delinquent tax collector portion of this article. And the plan will be that in 30 days from the first meeting of the new select board, we'll hold a special town meeting that will authorize, that will choose a, hopefully to have the treasurer become our collector of current taxes and resolve this issue once and for all. So, is that motion all right?
So Zeke, you are moving an amendment to the motion that's on the floor, and that is to change the article to read that we authorize the select board to appoint a receiver of delinquent taxes, deleting the words current and. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, there's an amendment on the floor. Has it been seconded?
I'll second that one.
Thank you. Any questions, discussion about the amendment on the floor to change the original motion to delete the words current and? You're prepared to vote? All in favor of the amendment to change the original motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. You have voted in the amendment. Now the motion reads that we authorize the select board to appoint a receiver of delinquent taxes. Any discussion on the motion on the floor now? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of the motion as amended signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. You have carried the motion. You have authorized the select board to appoint a receiver of delinquent taxes, and there will be another town meeting in a little over a month. Article 4, to see if the voters will vote to raise the sum of $133,000 through taxes and appropriate said amount to the capital fund for future capital needs.
Madam Moderator, I move we raise a sum of $133,000 through taxes and appropriate said amount to the capital fund for future capital needs.
And a second?
Second.
Joe seconds. The motion on the floor is to raise the sum of $133,000 through taxes and appropriate said amount to the capital fund for future capital needs. During the next article, we'll be authorizing expenditures, and I believe it is then that we will review what the money will be spent on. Are there any questions about the article on the floor to raise $133,000 through taxes to put into the capital fund? The motion on the floor is to raise the sum of $133,000 through taxes and appropriate said amount to the capital fund for future capital needs. All in...
I saw a hand go.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Is there a hand? Ah, yes.
John Moore. The warning said 125,000. Did you explain the difference?
I'm looking at 133,000. I wonder if you might be looking at the minutes from last year's town meeting, John. We're on page 58. Thank you. Good point, though. We cannot move a motion unless it is actually what has been warned in this year's warning. We can't just change it at a whim. Okay, then all in favor of the motion on the floor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. You have carried the motion to raise money for our capital fund. Thank you. Article 5, to see if the voters will vote to authorize capital expenditures in the amount of $135,000 from the capital fund for FY 2016.
Madam Moderator, I move we authorize the capital expenditures in the amount of $135,000 from the capital fund for fiscal year 2016.
And is there a second? Joe, thank you. It has been moved and seconded to authorize capital expenditures in the amount of $135,000 from the capital fund for FY 2016. Steve, would you like to speak to this?
Yeah, quickly. And maybe Lee would want to address it too, I'm not sure. Basically, what we are looking...
what page should we turn to?
I am on page 22, which is a capital budget plan. And if you look there, in year 2015-2016 budget, we are budgeting to replace a York rake for $5,000, and we want to replace an 06 Mack dump truck with a sander body with a new truck this year. And that would be for the $135,000 total.
Any questions? Or Lee, do you want to add anything to that? I see none. Are you ready for the question? It has been moved and seconded to authorize capital expenditures in the amount of $135,000 from the capital fund for FY 2016. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed say no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. And you have authorized expenditure from the capital fund. Article 6. To see if the voters will vote to authorize expenditures no greater than $12,000 from the capital fund for painting the exterior of the Dummerston Community Center.
Once again, Madam Moderator, I move we authorize expenditures no greater than $12,000 from the capital fund for painting the exterior of the Dummerston Community Center.
Second.
Guvakaram seconds. The motion has been made and seconded to authorize expenditures no greater than $12,000 from the capital fund for painting the exterior of the Dummerston Community Center. Would you like to explain this, Steve?
We, in working with the folks at the Community Center, realized that the building is really deteriorating on the exterior paint. And we've talked about this, I think, for a couple of years, trying to do some work to it. We did go out and get a couple, I won't call them bids, I'll call them estimates from a couple different people. So we think we're kind of in the general ballpark of what it might take to do the building. We have capped it at $12,000, and I guess if the bids come in more than that, then we may find that this year we might not be able to paint the entire building, and we have to skip one side. But the preliminary estimates are coming in about $12,000, so we think that's kind of realistic. The building needs to be maintained and certainly kept in good stead. So it would be our recommendation that we go ahead with this.
Any questions? Comments? Mike over there. Thanks, Jesse.
Did I understand, Steve, that this...
Could you state your name, please?
Sorry. My name is Fred. Did I understand, Madam Moderator, that this will go out to bid, assuming authorization by town meeting to go forward?
Steve, will it go out to bid?
Yes, it will go out to bid. I mean, what we've gotten so far are just preliminary estimates from people, but it would go out to bid, yes.
Any other questions? Up front, please.
Rick from Pedro. Can you comment on the rest of the condition of the building? $12,000 for paint, I'm all behind it, but I remember a discussion about windows last year, I believe. And what's the rest of the building's condition as well? Thank you.
If there's somebody here from the community center that would like to speak, I certainly would welcome that. Overall, I think the building is in decent condition. I know there's been some work done to the windows. There's been some treatments put on the windows. I think each year we try to do a little bit of work to the building without spending huge dollars to try to keep it in at least a decent condition and try to improve it. We have been over and visited a couple times and discussed some of the issues around the outside of the building. I know some of the safety issues have been concerned with the equipment that's been removed from the playground, and I just think there's a continual effort to try to maintain what's there and improve what's there. I don't know that we've addressed everything, and I would welcome somebody from the community center to help me with this explanation.
Is there anyone who would like to add to Steve's answer from the community center? Okay. Any further questions or comments? Over there? Sorry, we have just one operational mic at this point, so thanks for your patience.
My name is Richard Epstein. I just have a question about the building to add on to the comment that was already made about its condition. Has the board considered or any possibility of moving from paint to stain, which would be a less expensive option for the long-term history and health of the building?
Is that a question you can answer, Steve?
No. I don't think we've considered staying, and somebody else may want to comment on that.
I'm guessing there's a lot of layers of paint on that building already. Yeah.
I think probably the issue would be removing the paint that's there. I don't know, Richard. It's not fair for me to probably analyze that because we haven't looked into stains as an option. We certainly could, but there's a lot of area there that you'd have to remove a lot of paint.
Please stand if you're able. Thanks.
Marcy Hermanson. I like that idea, but I'm also aware, having recently painted a house, that there are new laws regarding lead, and so I think removing a lot of paint off the building could be very, very expensive.
Thank you. Is there further debate? Are you ready for the question? It has been moved and seconded to authorize expenditures no greater than $12,000 from the capital fund for painting the exterior of the Dummerston Community Center. All in favor of the article indicate by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and the article is passed. Article 7, to see if the voters will approve total general fund expenditures of $430,871, of which $246,893 shall be raised by taxes and $183,978 by non-tax revenues for the period of July 1st, 2015 to June 30th, 2016.
Madam Moderator, why does it sound so much louder when he talks?
Get right up to it, Zeke.
Madam Moderator, I move that we approve total general fund expenditures of, and this is where the corrections begin. So if you have your pencil at hand, $430,872. It's the, you know, it's a tight budget. of which $246,894 shall be raised by taxes and $183,978 by non-tax revenues for the period of July 1st, 2015 to June 30, 2016.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. This is a change to the original article, and that's a big dollar, but I think we can allow it if there's no objection.
The alternative was I was just going to kick in the dollar. This is a more transparent process.
It has been moved and seconded to approve general fund expenditures of $430,872, of which $246,894 shall be raised by taxes and $183,978 by non-tax revenues for the period of July 1st, 2015 to June 30th, 2016. Would you like to come explain
Yes,
your budget?
I would.
Or do you want to do it down there?
Can you hear me better on this one or that one?
All in favor of him staying there? Harold says there, okay.
Okay. I'm told that whatever popularity I enjoy as an elected official is due in part to people not being able to hear me. But taking a gamble here, if you'll turn to page 15 in your hymnal, and we'll start this process of correction. We were very careful, but we think we were hacked. Part of that Sony North Korean hacking business that went on, we think we were part of the collateral damage of that. So, I'll call your attention to page 15, just the summary of municipal taxes, just to get warmed up as we go through the budget.
Do you want to point out there's a corrected page?
There is, on the table at the back of the
Jesse and Bram, do you want to walk around with those, see if anyone needs them? There are corrected pages 15 and 19.
Page 15 and a corrected page 19. But if you've got a sharp pencil, you can just write in. I wanted you to look at the summary of municipal taxes proposed for 2015. The $246,894 are what we're discussing right now in this article. That total municipal taxes, that figure will change by $1 also. So that's going to end up being $745,370. Let me see. This looks like a $11,667 increase over our municipal taxes for last year, including the highway budget, which we're not going to discuss yet. If you want to turn...
Well, he was suggesting that you point out those changes too.
A suggestion has been made that I go ahead and make the other corrections on page 15. If you go up the page halfway, total general fund revenue, and go to the proposed columns that we're talking about today, that figure should be $430,872. Dipping into the highway revenue, just briefly, that figure should be, you can see it's exactly the same as last year, and although we tried to level fund it, we weren't that successful. That figure, you cross out that number and put in $487,476. Of course, increasing those amounts affect the grand total revenue, and that should be $918,348. So, with those corrections, the general fund revenue, just across the page, on page 14. These are our revenue projections for the budget that we're discussing right now. We're taking the surplus from 2 years ago and applying it to our total amount of money to be raised. Under tax revenue, the current taxes, if you want to change that number, add $1, so it becomes $246,894 instead of 93. Going down the list, we think the current use payment will increase. There's not a lot of other big items there that increase. You'll see dog licenses, we're projecting, we raised the fee on dog licenses by $2 for neutered or spayed animals and $3 for unspayed. So,
social engineering.
Okay, so those are the highlights, I'd say. If you want to turn to page 17, this is where we start spending the money. And you can see under what we call the select board section, not a lot of changes. The Wyndham Solid Waste Management District went up 5.9%. We fought tooth and nail about that, but we came out on the short end. Some of the insurance, public official liability, the workman's compensation, they went up a bit. The health insurance for town employees, the road crew and other town people that work 30 hours or more. We're pretty pleased that it's not gone up a whole lot. Part of that's due, we have what's called an HRA. And that money helps employees meet the deductible, their out-of-pocket expenses. And if they don't use it, it goes back to the town, back into the general fund, so it helps us keep our health insurance expenses down a bit. I should point out, in this budget, we do have a 2.5% increase in the wages for all town employees. Going down into administration, if anyone has questions, let me know, or let the moderator know. No big items under administration. There's just a 2.5% increase in wages. I don't think, if you want to turn the page, our zoning administrator, 2.5% increase in wages, some planning money, and training money for DRB members and planning commissioners. Not much of an increase in that. The municipal building, we have a new cleaning service, so there was an increase in that. The cost of mowing the lawns has gone up a little bit. Copier expenses have gone down. Under public safety, we're proposing that the sheriff's department contracts remain the same at $9,600. Rescue's assessment has gone up less than 1%. The other expenses are the same or have gone down. Our fire protection contribution to the volunteer fire department has increased, and I approached the Southern Vermont Learning Collaborative for a donation also, and they have let us know that they are willing to, in this coming fiscal year, make a donation to our fire department. On the next page, emergency management. That's what we call a pass-through. That money comes from the state or Vermont Yankee, and that is, at the present time, to my knowledge, that funding will continue through this next fiscal year. And I don't know if it's decided. I don't know if the final word has been said on whether some funding will continue or not. Depends on some, we'll wait and see. And in the meantime, we should be thinking about what we're going to do about emergency management in the town of Dummerston. And maybe we could have a forum or some community gathering to discuss that. Waste collection, we level funded waste collection. Health and welfare, the majority of the board voted to level fund this. And cemeteries have gone up. They're going to do some work. They'd like to do some work on trimming some trees, and the lawn mowing contract for cemeteries has gone up. The Recreation Board is going up just a little bit. They have a dynamic new board, and they have fundraising plans and a very ambitious agenda for the coming year. And I will point out, a lot of the boards and commissions in town are doing extra fundraising and not relying just on the town contribution, but they're seeking donations or having fundraising events. Community center, we've put all our eggs into the painting of that, so that's putting at 0 this year. Lydia Taft Pratt Library is staying the same at $12,000. And I just take a moment to recognize Winnie Voigt, who has been a trustee for the past 10 years. She's not running again this year, but I'd like to thank her for her 10 years of service as a trustee. And on page 20, next page, pretty much staying the same under conservation. Historical Society of Windham County, the same. The county tax threw us for a loop. We had thought that we were going to be able to keep the increase in the budget to about a 1.1% increase, and then the county tax, which funds the Superior Court, funds training for the Sheriff's Department, and the side judges, they went up much more than we anticipated. So Memorial Day expenses staying the same. So the total general fund expenses, and on this page, it's actually correct here, $430,872. And that's the issue we're discussing right now. We'll come in the next article to the Highway Department. So.
Yes, a question in the back?
Who's speaking?
State your name, please.
Isha Williams. Would now be the time to propose a change to the Farmland Protection Fund?
This would be the time to make an amendment, yes.
I would like to propose that we increase the Farmland Protection Fund by $2,500. It's about $1 per person in Dummerston. I think that the farmland in Dummerston has been disappearing over the last few years due to new houses being built on it. If we protect it, it's a good investment in the future, because studies by the Vermont League of Cities and Towns have shown that the towns that have protected the most open space have the lowest property taxes. Farmland is beautiful and attracts tourists, which create jobs through hotels and restaurants. Obviously, it creates jobs for farmers and farm workers. And beyond that, our open space is what keeps Dummerston beautiful. It's what makes it different than places that are near here to the south and to the east. So that's what I'm proposing.
So there's a motion for an amendment to the main motion. The amendment would be to add $2,500 to the Farmland Protection Fund, which would bring the total, Isha, up to $5,000. That's your intent? Is there a second? I see Bill McKim's hand seconding the motion. Open for discussion and comments. Oh, I should restate the motion. It's been moved and seconded to amend the main motion by increasing the bottom line of our total general fund expenses by $2,500 adding that money to the Farmland Protection Fund. Bram, right here.
Diana Waller. Could a person who's a representative of the trust just describe how the money has been spent in the last year or two, just to give us a sense of how it does protect farmland?
Thank you, Diana. Is there a representative here from the Farmland Protection Fund who could speak to how that money has been used? Vern, yes. A mic here, please.
Thank you. Vern Grubinger, Hague Road. I'm on the Farmland Protection Committee. And let's see, this past year, $18,000 was allocated in support of the Bunker Farm project, which amounted to approximately 2% of the total funds that had to be raised to purchase the development rights of that farm, which all was conducted by the Vermont Land Trust, and the $18,000 was a demonstration of the town's support of that project. The funds, just to be clear, are held by the town, and any authorization for their use comes from the select board. The Farmland Protection Committee simply makes recommendations. And originally, I think the fund was started with a tax sale, if I'm correct, and those funds were set aside, I think at town meeting. And then there was $5,000 a year was the historical allocation. It was reduced several years ago. So just as a perspective, I look at it as sort of like a capital fund. We're putting this money in and holding it. The difference is you can't schedule the disbursements because you don't know when projects will come forward. And in this case, we were lucky that they only wanted 2% of the total cost from the town. So we had suggested to the Land Trust they not ask for more than half of the total funds we had on time. So I would be thrilled to see an increase, so we would have more possibilities in the future should projects come along. The challenge is you can't say we will need exactly this amount of money at this time.
Further questions or comments? In the back, please.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. My name is Mark Whitaker. We discussed this. We've discussed this year after year after year. First of all, I'd like to commend our select board for having the sensitivity and the ability to realize how many residents are in financial hardships right now. And unfortunately, I'm one in that group, so I can speak from my heart. Last year, this came to a paper ballot, and as a good deed, I did some math work for the citizens here, and the 44 people that favored the increase last year, I let them know that they could go home and cut a check for $56.82, and they would raise that extra $2,500. Since that day, there's been 5 total donations to the Farmland Protection Fund. A big group of farmers that had the open farm day donated $250 on the money they raised on open farm days to support their own properties, basically, which is good. And don't get me wrong, I'm not against farming, I'm not against any of that. What bothers me is the avenue you're using to raise this money. That's the only fundraiser I know that people have done for this. When we get current use money back from the state, all they cover is the municipal end, which leaves us hanging for the educational end. There's over $21 million, almost $22 million of our estate, our acreage in current use. Therefore, right now, the taxpayers that don't get tax breaks are responsible for $335,000 of the education part, plus change. And we all break that up. So it's not like we aren't giving money to this. We're giving a lot of money. It's a third of $1 million. So that fell on deaf ears last year. The 3 out of the 4 individuals. And believe it or not, the 3 out of the 4 individuals that donated money out of their own pocket, out of the kindness of their heart, voted down to add $2,500 last year. It's really sad when people talk the talk and they won't walk the walk. I heard, you know, when we have something to buy, we'll donate that. Really? So will I. So I say no. I say no. Here's another number that's going to come out. Household income for Dummerston residents. Over 53% household income gross is $40,000 a year. 37% of us make gross, household, not individual, household, husband, wife, everybody. 37% of those people make under $30,000. Take the taxes and whatnot out of there, every dollar counts. I've said it again, this is not the avenue for this. Start doing some fundraising. The people who have deeper pockets than half of us, dip down, go home, write a check if it's that strong to you. But do not pin this on the back of the broken people. So I hope this is, once again, not voted in. Thank you.
Hand over here, please, Jesse, or Bram, whoever.
Hi, I'm Lynn Levine. I'm a forester and I work with the Use Value Program, and it's not a fact. We do not pay property taxes for farmland that other people are gaining. In other words, farmers that get the reduction, or forest land that gets a reduction, we do not pay from property taxes that increase. That comes from the general fund from the state, and it has been confused every year, but that is just not a fact.
I saw a hand in the middle, John.
John Warren. I'm apparently the fourth person because Mark Whitaker didn't contact me and I didn't make a contribution. I also voted in favor of the motion that came up last year. My contribution fell a little bit short of the $56 that Mr. Whitaker calculated, so I would be in favor of adding another $1 or so that I could come up to what he says is needed per person.
Another hand. Mark, you've already spoken to it, so I'm going to see if anyone else... Sorry, Mark, I need to see if anyone else wants to speak on this first. Ruth in the... Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Zeke.
Okay. Just for your information, if we go with the $2,500 that we have in our budget as written, the amount in the Farmland Protection Fund will be $30,748.52. And we didn't get a request from the Farmland Protection Fund while we were preparing the budget. So I talked with Jack Mannix, and you may know him from Walker Farm and a former select board member. And he's one of my go-to select board alumni when I have a question like this. I asked him about the Farmland Protection Fund amount that we had budgeted, what he felt about it. And he gave me permission to quote and paraphrase him to you. He told me that he was pleased with the $2,500 amount. He felt that what was important was that the town show a commitment and support for farmland protection each year, and the amount was immaterial. He's told me that when the Farmland Protection Fund was created, the intent never was to have an amount that could purchase farmland. The intent was to act as seed money and a show of community support, to leverage the real money that would come for any purchase, that would come from Vermont Land Trust and other funding sources. So he told me to let you know that he's happy with the $2,500 in the budget, and he wanted me to remind you that he's a farmer and a taxpayer also, and he'd like the town meeting voters to keep the $2,500 amount. And I am the orchard manager of a local farm in town, and just to let you know that we, even with current use, we pay $19,105 a year in taxes. And we would prefer not to have that amount increase. So.
Ruth, I saw your hand in the back.
It's my understanding.
Could you start by stating your name, full name?
Barton.
Thank you.
It's my understanding that the taxes on property in current use that come out of the general fund, that is the town portion of the taxes. It's my understanding that the school portion does not get paid.
Any other comments or questions from someone who hasn't spoken before? Joe.
Madam Moderator, I'm relatively new to the board, but it's my understanding that it's been a long time since there were any disbursements from the Farmland Protection Fund prior to this year when we did contribute towards the acquisition of the Bunker Farm. Perhaps someone could speak to that. I think that there's not, sadly, there are not a lot of farm properties in the town of Dummerston any longer. I'm afraid there's not a lot we're going to be able to change that. But as I said, I think it's been a considerable period of time since there was another disbursement from this fund.
Vern, am I correct in saying that this was the first disbursement?
Yes.
So the town's support of the Bunker Farm was the first time that a disbursement was made. Okay. So Mark, you had your hand up earlier. Would you still like to comment?
I'm all set now.
Okay. And Isha, I saw your hand briefly. Is there any more that you want to say?
I'd just like to respond to two of the questions on the first, Joe. In terms of there not being more land to be protected, there is a lot more farmland in Dummerston that's not protected. The Noy Farm, right up the road is one example. Scott Farm is also not protected from development. Each of those are hundreds of acres. In terms of Mark's question about low-income people and how this would affect them, and how nobody's made donations, according to there were very few people. As Vern said, the Bunker Farm, which was protected, was about, I believe, over 100 acres, and that was, I think, $400,000. Maybe someone else could correct me. 95% of that money did not come from the town; it came from other sources, including a lot of donations. So people do donate to protect land. And then the taxes for low-income people obviously are lower. If you're so poor you can't afford to own a house and you rent, you can get subsidies from the state to help pay your rent. If you own a small house with a small amount of land, you obviously pay a lot less taxes than someone who owns a big house with a lot of land. So about $1 a year is the average of what I'm proposing. And to put that in $1 per person per year in Dummerston. Poor people would pay less, wealthy people would pay more. And finally, just to put this in perspective, the $2,500, which would really affect the way our town looks for anyone traveling through our town. I believe the school budget this year, someone can correct me, is around $3 million we'll be voting on today. The town budget is around $900,000. So this is a small amount of money relative to those, and it would make a big difference in how our town looks forever.
Is there further debate? A hand in the back?
Mark Whitaker. Over 11% of the parcels, I don't know the acreage, but over 11% of parcels in this town is in current use. And I don't want people to be misguided by Mr. Mr. Williams' summary of low-income people. I've been pretty active in researching low-income benefits. And you've got to be pretty well down to poverty, 1.5 times poverty level, which is under $10,000. And that's gross income before you receive those benefits. So if you're making over $15,000, $16,000 a year gross income, you basically qualify for about nothing. And I know that for a fact. I've done my homework. Thank you.
Are you ready for the question? The motion on the floor is to amend the general fund budget by increasing the Farmland Protection Fund from $2,500 to $5,000. All in favor? I'm sorry? Okay. There need to be 7 registered voters for there to be a paper ballot. All in favor of having a paper ballot for this question, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have more than 7. We will do a paper ballot. The way this works, folks, is everyone whose last name begins with A through L on this side, from M through Z on this side. Please line up. You'll get a paper. You will vote yes if you would like the amendment to pass and the amount to increase. No if you want it to stay at $2,500. The results of the paper ballot are 50 people voted yes to change the amendment to increase the amount. 88 voted no. The amendment is defeated. We're back to the main motion, which concerns the general fund budget that Zeke presented a while ago. Any further questions, comments, debate? Walton is asking that we get closer to the mic.
What?
Someone is asking that you get closer to the mic. Okay. We're still not audible. Seeing none, are you ready for the question? It has been moved and seconded to approve total general fund expenditures of $430,872, of which $246,894 shall be raised by taxes and $183,978 by non-tax revenues for the period of July 1st, 2015 to June 30th, 2016. All those in favor of the article indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? No. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and you have passed your budget. 2 of our legislators are here, patiently waiting since before our paper ballot. I'm going to cede the floor to Mike Mrowicki and David Dean to give their report and answer your questions.
We still have some more budget to do.
Oh, I know.
Good morning. My name is David Dean, and I feel privileged to be serving in the legislature representing you this year in particular, because this is the year of water. I serve as the chair of the Fish, Wildlife, and Water Resources Committee. In addition, I am the ranking member on the House Rules Committee. Fish, Wildlife, and Water Resources has spent all year so far passing 2 pieces of legislation. One bill banned the manufacture and sale of products that contain microbeads. Microbeads are made of plastic, they're very small, and they are found in personal care products. Microbeads never decay, are not filtered out by wastewater treatment plants, attract molecules to themselves, including toxic molecules, and enter the food chain through fish and other aquatic species when they mistake the beads for food. Eventually, the toxins associated with the beads make their way into humans through consumption of fish. U.S. industry realized they made a really bad decision in including them in these products, and they did not find the bill that we passed onerous, and supported passage of the bill because they're changing their product makeup anyhow. That was the easy one. The other bill is the largest, most complex, and far-reaching I have ever worked on. And as you folks know, I've been up there a while. The bill will make effective change to the water quality protection laws in Vermont. The bill is the product of 3 years of work with the agriculture, municipal, and forestry communities. There have been hours of meetings beyond the State House with interest groups all over Vermont and ongoing cooperation among state agencies. This work has all led us to the passage of H35 out of the Fish, Wildlife, and Water Resources Committee on a bipartisan vote. As a statement to how complex the bill is, it will now be reviewed by the following committees: Agriculture, Transportation, Government Operations, Judiciary, Natural Resources and Energy, Ways and Means, and finally, the Appropriations Committee. All of those committees before it actually goes to a vote on the floor of the House. In addition to the work of working on passing H35 out of the committee, I convened on behalf of the House the first ever ethics panel that will review any charges made against House members of any unethical actions. We have finished adopting our process, and now each of the 5 of us who were appointed to the panel hope we will never meet again. Every House member, including Mike and myself, understands the difficult budget situation Vermont government faces. It has sunk in, folks, that there will be cuts that in normal times many of us would never consider making. You've probably seen a list of some of those suggested cuts in the news. And if you would, Mike and I will be around afterwards and we can talk about individual items. The House Rules Committee has reorganized our Education Committee so it can look at policy, education policy, as well as funding for public education. Those conversations have always been held in separate committees. So the conversations in many cases went like this. With the changes and a new, experienced, and talented chair to the committee, David Sharp, and a new charge given it by the Rules Committee, they voted out a bill this past Thursday that will change the delivery of public education. The bill is H361. We'll be glad to talk with you about those changes also in the back of the hall. Mike and I have brought the Doyle survey poll, and it's on the back table. And I want to thank you for the honor of serving you in the Vermont House, especially this year.
Thank you. Good morning, and thank you, David. It's great to be here. Great to be back home, away from the beehive, which has been buzzing this year up in Montpelier, and it's as it should be. We've been pretty busy, and some of our work is as hard as I've seen it, though. Been a lot like this winter again. Just when we think we're getting a little bit of a turn, we wake up and it's 19 below again, or there's another storm. Of course, for Chad Farnham, maybe that's good for business. A lot of insulation going on now, huh? As it should. But we're Vermonters, and we know it will warm up eventually. Days are getting longer. Spring will come, and just like spring will come, we'll get to a better place with what we're doing in Montpelier and with the budget. And as David said, it's a tough year for that. It's as tough as we've seen. And there's several reasons for that. One of the reasons is we're still cleaning up the mess from the Great Recession. It's still affecting how we budget now. And the really frustrating thing is Vermont really didn't contribute that much to it. On a national level, deregulation, loosening of oversight allowed financial institutions not to act like financial institutions. They made lots of decisions which almost tanked the world's economy. And I mention that because as we get into the next election cycle, you're going to hear people talking about how we need to go back to those policies. And let's remember those are the policies that got us in this mess in the first place. On the state level, revenues are coming in slower than we expected, and that's affecting us, and we're also having the effects of the sequestrations that happened in Congress last year. So all that has created this perfect storm for our budget, which makes it tough. We're having to make tough decisions, but what we're trying to make sure is that we stick with the values, the Vermont values that guide our hand on this, our commitment to ourselves, our people, what make communities special places, our commitment to our environment, and we want to make sure we're not throwing people overboard. And we're not going to create a tax structure that only favors those who are already doing well. And in our budget, we'll not forget the mark of a great society is how we treat the least of us. When we look at the budget, we see people, not just numbers. And when we look at our schools, we see our children first. And the teachers and school boards that are already doing a good job to spend our money wisely and make sure our children receive a good education. We'll preserve our land, support our farms, clean up our waters, offer innovative policies like our energy plan, and we'll do that in the 16 weeks we have for our session and then get back to our regular jobs in the communities we love. Specifically, there's a few things that we've been working on, and just as a small thing, I've heard from a number of people in this area. If you've been riding on the West River Bridge on I-91, how dangerous it feels when you're driving at night. So a number of you have contacted us and said, can't we do anything? So we've been pushing for them to put some light diffusers on their extensions. And my understanding is that's happened. So small favors can sometimes happen, but it's important that you give us that kind of feedback, and hopefully we can act on it. Some of the other bills we're looking at is specifically one I'd rather not be. We're having to look at a bill that helps strengthen the laws on exploiting elders. And the unfortunate thing is, where the exploitation is often coming from are the people and family who have been entrusted to take care of these elders. So what we've had to do is we're looking at statutes that would allow us to look at bank accounts before they get cleaned out. That's been a problem because often the people who need to give that permission are the ones that are cleaning out the account. We're working on an update of the Death with Dignity bill. This is something that, if you've been following the news very prominently, somebody who lives in Putney, Westminster area availed themselves of. It was her third bout with cancer, and Maggie Lake used that bill, and I think her family has provided some really powerful testimony that this was the thing to do, and we'd like to make sure that the considerations are in place to make sure it's not misused, but that this is an option people have as they move forward. We also just passed an energy bill in the House that'll be going over to the Senate. It's going to build on our work that we've been doing to support renewables, to support conservation, efficiency. It'll save money, reduce our carbon footprint. Now, I heard current use mentioned before, and we are tweaking the laws on that. And I just want to mention first, current law is funded at the state level. This is not something that comes directly out of town budgets, but there's the amount that people pay and then locally, but then the state comes in and supplements that. One of the problems we've had with current use is that there have been some people, and more in the northern part of the state than here, that have been misusing the program. The idea is to support open lands, to support farmland, to support woodlands, but some people have been buying up large lots of land, putting it in current use for a few years, taking that benefit, but then turning it around and developing the property, selling it off. That's not what current use was set up to do. So we're looking at that and making sure the program doesn't get abused. As David said, we're also working on an education bill. It still has many moving parts, and by the time we get done, it's probably going to look very differently than what it does now. So stay tuned for how that looks. But the bottom line is that what it seeks to do is what we already do here in the supervisory union. We work together well. We're part of a supervisory union that has 9 schools. It has a high school. It has a technical school, and that's what they're trying to implement around the state. You know, especially as you move into northern Vermont, there are towns that are supervisory unions unto themselves, and in those ways, I think things can be done more efficiently. What I'm trying to be careful of is that we don't try and create a one-size-fits-all, because I think that as much as Dummerston and Putney might be similar, we have our differences, and both schools do great jobs. And we don't want to get in the way of people doing a good job, and I think our school boards are doing a good job here. We just left Putney. Putney's budget is down 2% this year. I don't know what the budget looks like here, but I know every year people are working hard to keep the costs down, at the same time providing a great education for our kids. I want to thank you for the opportunity and the honor to serve you. I want to remind you we need to hear from you to do our jobs well. So our contact information is on the reports that we put in the back there. It's also available on the legislative website, so feel free to be in touch with us, whether it's putting light diffusers on the barriers on the interstate or moving ahead with energy bills. We want to hear from you. It's what makes things work better here in Vermont. Now, I know we can't be all things to all people, and as we move forward, we can't give everyone everything they want. We'll make tough decisions, though, in a way that sees a big picture, and that includes everyone. A big picture that gets us to a better day and reminds us that spring will come after winter, and that we'll get our job done in Montpelier, and Vermont will be better off for it. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye now.
Our Senator Jeanette White has arrived as well, so we'll hear her report and have questions for her.
Thanks. Boy, I guess my timing is perfect. I just pulled in the parking lot. And somebody must have just pulled out because I got to park right up close. Thank you again for taking some time to listen to us. And once again, I would say that it is a real honor to be able to serve you in Vermont and Montpelier, and to serve all of Vermont, because that is what we do. The Senate is supposed to be a little more overarching than the House. Not that they aren't, but we're charged to be that way. So really there are 4 kind of overriding issues in the, at the state this year, and one is the waters of the state, and David has talked about that. And it is the waters of the state. We hear a lot that it's the lake, and it is the lake, but it's all the waters of the state. And over here, we're just as concerned about the Connecticut River, jobs and the economic development, and that's being tackled by the Economic Development Committee, and education. And I think you might have talked about that a little bit, and that's being tackled by the Education Committee. None of it has come to the Senate yet. The one thing that we're all supposed to pay attention to this year, and we need to, is the budget. I'm sure that I didn't hear what David and Mike said, but we have a $120 million hole that we're trying to fill in the general fund. That's a lot of money. So we know that there's going to be pain. No matter what we do, we have to have additional revenue and we have to make cuts. And no matter what we do, there's going to be pain felt by somebody. And as I see it, our role is to make sure that we do the least amount of pain to those who are the least able to speak for themselves. But we're looking for efficiencies. We're looking for, should we cut full programs or should we starve everybody? It's a real decision to have to make. And everybody has their own parochialism here. The other day I came up with an idea that, it wasn't my original idea, but I was the one that threw it out on the table, that would save $5 million. Now $5 million isn't a ton in $120 million, but it's a start. So I threw it out on the table and people went, oh no, we can't go there. That's sacred to us. We can't touch that. We've got to get over that. We've got to all be willing to put everything on the table. So I serve on 2 committees. In the morning, I'm on the Judiciary Committee, and one of the things that we've been dealing with is our child protection system. And you probably know that we had a couple very tragic incidents last summer and fall, and so we've been looking at the child protection system as a whole, the judiciary, the administrative, the foster parent program, the whole thing, and looking at how we can tighten that up so that people are actually speaking to each other in an attempt to protect the children. We have created a new crime, and I really hate to do that because I think we're in the business too much of creating crimes, but in this case it's trying to get at people who should have protected children and didn't. They should have, they could have, and they didn't. And there's a lot of controversy about that, and I'll go into some detail if you have questions about it, or I'll stay for a while and you can ask me individually. The other issue we're dealing with in judiciary is guns. And there's a lot of passion on both sides of this issue. And I believe where we are right now is that Vermont is the only state that doesn't have a parallel law with the federal government. So in Vermont, somebody can be arrested for possession of a gun if they're somebody who shouldn't have a gun, but we can't prosecute them at the state level. It has to be prosecuted by the federal prosecutors, and the federal prosecutors are so overwhelmed with huge cases that they're not about to take on smaller cases. We're the only state that doesn't have that parallel law. Every other state has it. So one of our attempts is to pass a parallel law that would allow us to prosecute when somebody is arrested. That's all it does. It doesn't change what they can be prosecuted for. The other 2 parts of it are, in adopting that, we would be adopting the federal guidelines of who can have guns, and one of them is a felon, but the way the feds define felon is anybody who's been convicted of a crime that holds a 1-year sentence. That's way too broad. It takes way too many people into the net. So we're going to be defining it, we think, as people who have committed a felony under what's called the listed crimes, and they're really pretty awful crimes. They're murder, arson resulting in death, sexual assault of a child, things like that. So we're narrowing the definition of a felon, and we're also narrowing the definition of somebody who's suffering from a mental health crisis to not just everybody who's suffering from a mental health crisis, but somebody who has been adjudicated by the courts to be a danger to themselves or others. So it just isn't anybody. And we're going to have an out so that they can get off the list. In government operations, we're reviewing the open meeting law. I don't know how that's affected you guys here, but we are looking at that. We're responding to the closure of Austin School because we in the state of Vermont don't have a very good system for dealing with our deaf and hard of hearing children and their families. So we're trying to look at that and what's the best way to do that, which is really hard to do in this year of what we see as budget cuts. We're looking at the establishment of a new profession called dental practitioners. We looked at that last year. I think I might have reported on that last year. It seems that almost everybody in the state loves it except the dentists, but we'll go forward with it, I think. We're looking at more timely disclosure of lobbying efforts and expenditures by people who are trying to influence legislation as we're in the process of passing the legislation. And lastly, our committee is looking at the legalization of marijuana. And we are not looking at it as should we or shouldn't we, but instead we're looking at it as if it's going to happen in Vermont, how should it happen? How can we do it the Vermont way instead of doing it the way Colorado and other states did, where they first passed the law, didn't ask any questions, didn't have any regulation or anything else set up, but passed the law first. So we're looking at it exactly the opposite of, and then hopefully what we come up with this year of how it could be done can then help guide the conversation next year of should it be done. And just for your information, we are not, the very last thing we're looking at on this is as a revenue source. We think that is not the way to look at this issue, but as a choice. And so we are not going to tackle the revenue source. And our committee has been very clear that if it happens in Vermont and there is a revenue source, that we're going to recommend that at least 50% of the proceeds from it be spent on prevention, education, and keeping it out of the hands of kids. Because that's how we made a difference with smoking and with alcohol among kids, is education and regulation. So with that, I'll just say it's an honor to be here. And I do just want to mention about town meeting. And I don't know if any of you heard the commentary on the radio the other day by Deb Luskin about town meeting. And my committee, Government Operations, is in the business of promoting democracy. That's one of the things I love about it. So I think that we're trying to figure out how do you strengthen town meeting. And in my opinion, there are 3 things that you need at town meeting. You need to have real issues that you can discuss and debate. You need to have discussion and debate. And then you need to have the ability to actually make the decision. And if you don't have those 3, then it is more of an exercise than legitimate democracy. And in my opinion, Australian ballot has taken away a lot of the discussion and debate, and the state has taken away the real issues and the ability to make decisions. So we're working on trying to move back in the other direction and topple that a little bit. So thanks again.
Do you have any questions for our legislators? Yes, a mic up here, please.
Christian Navarre. Jeanette, you briefly mentioned the bill with regards to economic development. And my question is, what is being done in terms of job development, especially in Lincoln County?
Oh, actually, I don't think I said a bill. I think that the issue is being dealt with the Economic Development Committee. I'm not on there, so I really don't know where they are. I know that they don't even have a bill yet, but I do know that we're trying to put more emphasis on the incredible amount of planning that's gone on in Windham and in Bennington counties, and try to work together to make sure that the state pays attention to that.
If I could say, yeah, one of the areas across the country where there's a lot of economic growth is in renewable energy, in green energies, and the governor has been working together with us to encourage some of that. We've already created, I think, over 1,000 jobs since the governor took office in that area, and these are growth areas where I think it's sustainable growth. These are good jobs, and I think it's an area we want to keep focusing on.
Any other questions? Yes, back there, please.
Senator White, you...
State your name, Rich.
Sorry, Rich Coglia.
Thank you.
Senator White, you introduced a bill, S56, I believe, elevating the Department of Public Safety to an agency. I didn't hear you talk about that. With this budget crisis, how does this affect the state coffers, making a department with a commissioner now an agency with a secretary?
Well, I didn't mention it because we're not going to look at it this year. I did introduce it, and there is a corresponding bill in the Senate. Mine doesn't have a lot of detail in it. I think that ultimately there could be some savings by putting some things under a department that should be under an agency that should be under an agency. But we're not going to look at that this year at all. We just don't have time. Thanks.
Other questions? Dan in the back.
Thank you. My name is Dan Normando. I want to start off by just thanking the 3 of you for the hard work and dedication that you provide. Most of what you do, I feel, is very important, and I wanted to let you know that before I make my statement. One of the things I wanted to mention was be careful for us, if you will. You did talk a little bit about education. The bill that's out now, the draft form, I would ask you, as you work on that, to keep in mind the results of our children. That's almost never brought into the discussion. It's very hard to get the data, and I appreciate it if you folks keep that in the forefront as you look at the funding issues that go along with that. I can only speak to Dummerston, being on the school board, and I know that our school has exceptional results compared to not only the district but the state. So I'm hopeful that you can help this bill not cause any negative consequences for us here. Also, keep in mind, in the draft form, they're talking about a 2% cap on equalized student expenses, and be careful of that too, because that may sound sexy and easy, but it may have some negative consequences when you factor in the complicated formula that is in existence now. The bulk of what I want to talk about is that the three of you spoke for over 22 minutes. A little of my thunder was stolen by Christian up front, but you spent about 1.2 seconds on economic development. I think that was Jeanette. Congratulations, you were the only one that spoke about of the three of you until the questions were asked. We really need you three, as well as everybody else up there in Montpelier, to have that in your matrix as you evaluate everything you do. Because without an economy, nothing else matters. I'm very thankful that you focus on water, and forests, agriculture, food, human services, everything. They're all worthy. But we really need to spend time focusing on our economy. And there's some great people working on the local and regional levels that would love to help you. And it would be nice if you'd reach out to them from time to time. I know we do reach out to you as well. So work with us on the local level. If we improve our economy, it'll make your jobs easier with every other issue you face. And to steal some of Mike's words in closing, he talks about the big picture that will get us to a better day. That's the economy. Thank you.
I thank you for alerting me that I have not been articulate in terms of the importance of clean water to our economy. Lake Champlain is a $2.2 billion a year asset to the state of Vermont. The Connecticut River is a weak shadow of that, but it is simply a matter that, if you will, we have not been discovered. Now, I'm not sure whether we want to be or not, but that's for the future. But don't ever misunderstand that because I work in the water area or the fish and wildlife area, that the economic impact of the activities that go on statewide in those issue areas are not connected to economic development. It is a central part of conversation in my committee on a daily basis. So I stand corrected for not having sort of brought that forward as part of my remarks about the work we're doing with water this year. And while I have the microphone, I just wanted to say that if nothing else, the Senate is overarching.
I won't even respond to that. But I was going to say that they all are intertwined, and most everything we do has an impact on the economy up there. And I was going to talk about the water, but David did that. But I think that, and we do listen to people who've been doing an incredible amount of planning in this area, and we've been meeting with them pretty regularly. I was at Vernon last night, and well, I was someplace else this morning, and I won't say where I was, but people just said, you've got to help with the economy. You've got to help with the economy. And I said, you know, I was at Vernon last night, and this guy came up and he had a very, very specific example of how we could help with the industry that he was in. I wouldn't have thought of that necessarily because I'm not in his industry, but he had a very specific example. And besides listening to the people who've been doing the planning, that's what we need, is specific examples of what we can do instead of just help us. So thanks.
Up front, please. There's a hand here. Mic runner here, Bram. Thanks.
Hello, my name is Brad Grant. This is just a comment. And I'm very concerned about the park and ride facility that's being constructed in Putnam and also Howard Dummerston. With all the talk about budgetary constraints at the federal, state, and local level, and granted this is funded by a congressional earmark, I'm less than pleased with the lack of really participatory budget process. Hold the mic up, please. By which I'm really appalled at the lack of a participatory budget process by which this project moved forward. And I would hope that in the future that you representatives do whatever you can to try to divert these so-called congressional earmarks from this frivolous type of funding that really could be used for better purposes when we're talking about poverty and inequality and all the other issues that we have in Vermont.
Can I respond to that? Thank you. I would like to respond to that because I was on the side of supporting the park and ride in Putney, and I still maintain that it is a good project. That park and ride was on the state has a list of projects that it keeps, the State Transportation Department, it keeps moving up the ladder, if you will, each year. That project was defined by Wyndham Regional Planning Commission about 12 years ago as a priority. There was a lot of involvement at that time from communities around whether that project was needed. There isn't a similar park and ride on 91 until you get to Weathersfield. And the one in Weathersfield, they designed for 75 cars, and it is overloaded. You cannot find a place to park in that park and ride. This one was designed for 85 because the thought was that in not the first year, but in the second, third year, it will be used by that many people. So the idea behind park and rides is that we have an issue with too much carbon footprint. We have too many people driving their individual cars. It's expensive. It's bad for the environment. And if we can encourage park and rides, we can encourage people to carpool, to take the bus. There's a really nice little bus shelter there. There's a place for you to plug in your electric vehicle and charge it up. There's a bike rack there so you can ride your bike down from Westminster West or wherever you want to ride it from, and then meet up with somebody and go to White River Junction or Lebanon or wherever it is you go. So I still maintain that that was a needed project, that it won't solve poverty, but it will solve some of the other issues that we have in the state, and we have to look at all of them. So I still maintain that that was a good project. The lighting on it was very controversial, and there was actually chance for input because there was a suit filed against the state, and it was delayed by about 4 months, which is why it's not now operating. It should have been operating in September, October, but it got delayed and ended up costing the state a lot of money for the mediators for that project. So if anybody has any specific questions about that, I'd be happy to answer, but I still defend it.
Bill, over here.
Bill Schmidt. I would just like to urge the three of you on the economic development front to strongly support the working lands and funding for that program this year. One of the fastest growing sectors of economic growth, job growth in Vermont is in agriculture and forestry businesses and businesses related to that. So that's a really important program to keep going, and I hope you'll support it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Diana, in the middle there, please. Where's our mic runner? There.
Follow up on Dan's comment about the focus on economic development. Our regional think tank, SEVES, Southeastern Vermont Regional Collaborative Group, that has been doing incredible planning work regarding priorities for economic development. They have made recommendations for 12 distinct projects that they have found will increase jobs, will increase different creative ways of approaching our economy. When the governor made decisions regarding the expenditures and the investment in new projects, it didn't seem that he gave due recognition to those 12 projects. And I'd just like to hear comments from you about ways that the legislature could advocate for what our regional think tank has done an incredible amount of research on, and try at the next round, which is coming up, for using the decommissioning funding from Vermont Yankee to recognize the local work and the local priorities in a better way.
Thank you, Diana. That's a good point. And I'm going to be brief because they just put dessert out. I don't know if people have noticed this happening, and that can inspire brevity in the best of us. But your point's well taken. I think all of us have met individually with the governor over this issue and about some specific projects that scored really well in the process but didn't get funded. And I think the governor shared his take on the emphasis on creating jobs. And I think there needs to be a little bit better communication on their end as to what the criteria are for the grants and for the funding. And I think that process is continuing, but we are working to help move those things forward, and we have met individually with the governor to express that as well. So moving forward, I think things will get moving a little faster, but there was initially I think a little disconnect in what they wanted and what they were talking about wanting. So.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So what do you think? Highway budget or lunch?
5 minutes. 5 minutes. That's all we need.
Zeke says he only needs 5 minutes to present the highway budget, and I don't see the ham out yet, so I guess we'll do it. We're back on page, 58. We're on Article 8. To see if the voters will approve total highway fund expenditures of $487,476, of which $365,476 shall be raised by taxes and $122,000 by non-tax revenues for the period of July 1st, 2015 to June 30th, 2016.
Madam Moderator, I move that we approve total highway fund expenditures of $487,476, of which $365,476 $65,476 shall be raised by taxes and $122,000 by non-tax revenues for the period of July 1st, 2015 to June 30th, 2016.
Is there a second?
Second.
The motion has been made and seconded to approve total highway fund expenditures of $487,476, etc. Zeke, would you like to present?
Yes, if you'll turn in your hymnals to page 16. I'm going to save you some flipping back and forth and just tell you that the revenue we expect for the highway department comes from $122,000 that we are anticipating receiving from the Highway State Aid Program. So, how we plan to spend this money, you'll find on page 16. And if you look down, or if you remember what I said about this last year, you pretty much have the same story. A couple little changes. Salt has gone up. We'll see that the cell phone has gone up. If any of you have advice for Lee as far as a good carrier for cell phones, just speak with him after. We're spending a little more on gasoline. That reflects the purchase of a gas-fueled vehicle. A little less on diesel, because we think diesel will be less, and we replaced a diesel vehicle with a gas vehicle. Other than that, we continue the $95,000 for repaving. And so far, the line repainting went pretty well this summer. And with that, that's about all I have to say, unless you have questions.
Any questions, comments? Seeing none. Are you ready for the question? The article on the floor is a motion to approve total highway fund expenditures of $487,476, of which $365,476 shall be raised by taxes and $122,000 by non-tax revenues for the period of July 1st, 2015 to June 30th, 2016. All those in favor of the article indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and you have passed your highway budget. Who seconded that motion? Steve did. If there's no objection, we will recess for lunch and reconvene the meeting at 1 p.m. Thank you. And we are up to Article 9. To see if the voters will appropriate a total of $9,107.38 to be put in the Highway Structures Replacement Fund using the $9,107.38 fiscal year 2014 highway surplus.
Madam Moderator, I move that we appropriate a total $9,107.38 to be put into the Highway Structures Replacement Fund using the $9,107.38 from fiscal year 2014 Highway Structures surplus.
Highway surplus, is that what you mean, Lewis?
What did I say?
Highway structures surplus, I think you mean highway,
I
right?
didn't mean to say that. Surplus, thank you.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. It has been moved and seconded to appropriate a total of $9,107.38 to be put in the Highway Structures Replacement Fund using the $9,107.38 FY 2014 highway surplus. Would you like to present anything about this, Lewis? No? Okay. So we've got leftover money from the highway budget that we'd like to put in a structures fund, and is that different than the capital fund?
Yes, that is different from the capital fund. This is for doing like bridge work, If we have a bridge replacement or a culvert replacement, we use that one.
Okay, any questions about this? Comments? If there's no debate, are you ready for the question? Somebody nod their head. Yes, I saw one. Okay. You are voting to appropriate a total of $9,107.38 to be put in the Highway Structures Replacement Fund using the $9,107.38 fiscal year 2014 highway surplus. All those in favor of the article signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The motion carries. Article 10. Article 10 was placed on the warning by petition. The petition was organized by the Social Services Advisory Committee, of which I am the chair. Not to set precedent, but former moderator Charles Fish has kindly agreed to pinch hit for me in moderating this part of the meeting. Charles, are you still here? Yes. Oh, good.
Article 10, to see if the voters will vote to raise, appropriate, and expend the sum of $875 to increase the total health and welfare line item in the proposed 2016 general fund budget from $10,350 to $11,225, with the line item allocations in the budget changed to the following. Brattleboro Senior Meals, $450. CRT, the current, $500. The Gathering Place, $400. Grace Cottage Hospital, $325. HCRS, $700. Morningside Shelter, $800. Senior Solutions, $650. Wyndham Child Care Association, $500. Women's Freedom Center, $700. Is there somebody prepared to move this article?
Ms. Margaret,
Yes. Microphone down here, please.
My name is Rita Ramirez, and I move we raise, appropriate, and expend the sum of $875 to increase the total health and welfare line item in the proposed 2016 general fund budget from $10,350 to $11,225. Do you want me to read it?
I suppose you should read the rest of it.
With the line item allocations in the budget changed to the following. Brattleboro Senior Meals, $450. CRT, the current, $500. The Gathering Place, $400. Grace Cottage Hospital, $325. HCRS, $700. Morningside Shelter, $800. Senior Solutions, $650. Wyndham Child Care Association, $500. And the Women's Freedom Center, $700.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Did you get who it was? The motion has been made and seconded to see if the voters will vote to raise, appropriate, and expend the sum of $875 to increase the total health and welfare line item in the proposed 2016 general fund budget from $10,350 to $11,225. And I don't think I need to read the remaining details. So the motion is on the floor and it's open to debate, and Rita, who made the motion, has the first opportunity to speak.
Thank you. I'm Rita Ramirez. I am the Town Service Officer, and I'm also a member of the Advisory Committee. I've been a member of that committee for 5 years. On your chairs, there's a blue piece of paper that gives much more detailed information about this article. And there was also an in-depth article in the Views of Dummerston that laid out our thinking. So what I just really want to say is that that 5 years ago, the Select Board appointed a social services committee to look at all of the applications that came in and make recommendations to the Select Board about how much money we could allocate to them. So what we did with that was we created an application that gave us information about how many Dummerston residents use these services,
how big is the budget of the services that, of the agencies, and how much are they getting from other towns that are similar to our town and that use these agencies similarly. So over the past 5 years that we've been doing this, we have kept seeing that Dummerston gives significantly less than other towns. And so what we wanted to do is we wanted to really look at this. And granted, again, this has been over a 5-year period. We looked with regards to the populations of towns that surround us that use these services. We looked at how much those towns give to these particular agencies, and we also looked at what percentage of their budget comes from these towns. And it has become clear to us that Dummerston, of the 7 towns, Dummerston gives significantly less. We give $5.55 per capita, and that puts us at the 7th of the 7 towns that we look at. The 6th town gives $10.48 per capita, so it's a significant difference. So while we are very cognizant of the fact that asking for any kind of a tax increase is something that we're loath to do, again, for 5 years we've been looking at this, and we've come to the decision as an advisory committee that this is an important statement about Dummerston as a community, and that Dummerston as a community serves or offers services to, or supports the services that help the residents of our town who are least likely to be able to maybe advocate for themselves. And we're talking about the Women's Freedom Center, we're talking about HCRS, we're talking about services for children in foster care, really significant services. And it's a statement about us as a community. So that's all. Thank you.
Are there questions or comments? In the middle, right back on the, yes.
Thank you. I'm Chad Farnham. Excuse me. I'm on the board of One Side Shelter, and I just want to urge everyone to think about this in light of the fact that these organizations that we give money to rely heavily on money that is going to be cut by the state. And even though this amount of money isn't going to make or break some of these organizations, it is going to impact how these organizations run. I know that as a community, a lot of the people in our community are served by this, and I just feel it's a good opportunity to give some money back. And as Mike pointed out earlier, Mike Merwicki said, a community is judged on not necessarily its size, but how it treats those less fortunate, and these organizations help the less fortunate in this area. As I don't like to ask people to give more, I don't like to take donations, involuntarily. I do support this, and I urge everyone else to as well. Thank you.
Are there other comments? Down here in the front, Jean Newell.
I'm Jean Newell, treasurer for the Dummerston Community Trust. And I would like to remind people that some of these organizations that they're asking for more money are already getting some money from our organization, the Dummerston Community Trust. And that money is given by people who can afford to give it. And they also give to the organizations themselves. So I would just like to remind you that there are many, many people in this town that do not have the ability to pay even $1 more in taxes. I would just know that in the position that I'm in, I've seen many of these things happening. So I'd like to just remind you that some people don't know that we do, but now you do. Okay?
Other comments? Far back left.
Hi, Richard Puck. Math wasn't my strongest subject in school, but looking at what was proposed in the budget and what you have, or what Article 10 is proposing, an increase of $975. Where is that $100 coming from?
May I speak to that?
Oh, yes.
The Social Services Advisory Committee suggested that the $100 that had been allocated for RSVP last year go to 0 this year. So subtract that $100.
Other comments? Back, center.
Mr. Moderator, thank you. Unfortunately, this falls in the same category for me as the Fireman Protection Fund issue. It's not that I have a problem with the programs. I myself have been a recipient of a Dummerston program this year. I'm not proud, but that's a fact. I watched the select board meeting from the 12th of November when the committee went to the select board with this. And unfortunately, I don't think everybody realizes how much in touch our select board is and how hard they work to keep the budget down. And these are donations. I was raised where donations were given, not taken. I gave you numbers earlier, and this comes from the U.S. Census Bureau. Out of the 647 households in Dummerston, 53% of the households, 341 of those 647 houses, has a household income gross under $40,000 a year. 37% of them gross under 30. Take the taxes and your Medicare out of that, and you'll understand how people are living by a shoestring. And I wish you'd be a little more sensitive to that. I'm disappointed that the Social Services Committee did not talk to the community chest people to find out how much more money was going and where it was going. That's part of their job that I think they really neglected. So that shines a different light on things. They've done no fundraisers for that. You got a committee. I recommend you search other avenues for this money. The principle of this whole idea is wrong. You're putting one more straw on the camel's back. And I don't think you realize how many camels in this town can't take that straw. And I wish you'd consider that and vote this down at town meeting and do something else to get your monies. Thank you.
Other comments?
Here.
Oh, okay. First there, and then Lou.
Dan Snow.
Thank you.
Question for Rita or anyone on the Social Services Committee that might know the answer. Are any or all or some of these part of what would be a contribution to United Way?
Is there a specific answer to that question? Then I'll call on Lou.
I don't think we know.
Pardon?
I don't think we know.
I gather we don't know. Louis?
Louis White, I just have a question for clarification. The $100 that Rich Cogliano mentioned, we've already voted on that, and that was part of the budget that was, that $100 was in the article. So I'm just wondering if that $100 was already voted in, and now we're saying we're not going to give that?
That's way beyond my competence, but maybe somebody?
I step over here and ask for a microphone.
She's appropriately joining the audience now.
Oh, yes, the proposed budget figures, as I think they duplicate last year's figures, that is not what the Social Services Advisory Committee recommended. The Select Board decided to repeat last year's figures, but as we have done many times in the past, the committee advised that some allocations be reduced while others be increased. This year, our only reduction that we recommended was to stop funding RSVP, which had been getting $100 a year. So our recommendation was for a zero for RSVP. I also do want to address the Dummerston Community Chest, which is a wonderful organization. I think that's addressed in here. The letter that I got from the Dummerston Community Chest this year, the fundraising letter last fall,
listed all the agencies and organizations that were supported by Dummerston Community Trust money. There's Dummerston Cares, and then Grace Cottage Hospital wasn't on the list, but I believe that money was sent to them, it just didn't make the list. So those are the two overlap, Dummerston Cares and Grace Cottage Hospital. The other 15 organizations listed on the back of this page are not supported by the Dummerston Community Trust.
Yes, Lou?
I don't know if my question was answered. Is it 900 now though that we'd be raising, or because the number that we have down there must be a wrong number. The number down there should be 11,350. So I'm just asking how that's supposed to be worked out.
I have some more questions.
The select board chairman thinks he can shed light.
No, I can throw more.
Oh, he just wants to spread more obscurity over the question.
Well, given the North Korean hacking that we had, I do recall in the budget process that we reallocated that $100 in two $50 amounts to go to the other. We kept the $10,350 as budgeted, but we zeroed out RSVP and gave it to two other organizations based on the Social Services Advisory Committee's recommendations. So, this has fallen through those cracks. So I'm not sure how to address the earlier vote on this. Let's start again. How about we start just all over?
So just for my clarification and maybe other people's, $100 that the committee supposedly wants you not to spend, we've already agreed to spend. Is that the?
No.
No.
We had
so much for that.
Some addition of our budget. We had made the change they recommended, but then this final page 19 report went back to an earlier version of which was not our intention.
But we did vote it.
We did. We did.
We did.
Son of a gun.
Son of a gun. Well.
So the select board does have the authority to, I think.
Well, I don't think you do. I'm not to rule on matters of that sort. Someone here want to speak to the question of whether the select board has the authority not to spend something we voted?
I think you have to spend what you voted on. I mean, we voted to spend that money where it's here. This is what the taxpayers said they wanted to vote on. That's what we voted on.
Far back, right. I knew the meeting would get interesting if we really just held on long enough.
There's no way in heck you can convince me that you have to spend anything. You're just giving authorization to spend up to that number. Thank you.
Anybody else care to speak to that? Left center here, please.
So working? I can't speak to the...
Hold it up closer, please.
I'm Cliff Adler. I can't speak to the $100. I don't know anything about that. What I want to do is, when I read the views of Dummerston, I was incredibly impressed with the articulateness, the thoroughness of the research, the addressing, possible questions, addressing the community chest issue. What I want to, one paragraph here says, Dummerston has a proud tradition of taking care of our own. What we need is for a visiting nurse, or a child therapist, or specialized supports that allow an elder to live safely at home we help by supporting these area social services. Let's be sure we're doing our share. I can't be more articulate than that. I want to strongly support the intention here, which is to say that we are, by 50%, contributing less than the lowest other contributing community in our area, comparable kind of community in our area. I would hope that our goal would be over not too long to be able to catch up. You know, if we came close to doubling what we're contributing right now, we would still be basically at the bottom of that sort of commitment to support people who are in need through the social service agencies that help our that help our residents. So in line with that, what strikes me is that this proposal, were it to be replicated, would take 12 years to reach the point where we were equivalent to the lowest contributing per capita town in this area. So I would like to propose an amendment to increase, to add to this proposal $800, which would be $50 for each of the 16 agencies. If you look at the blue sheet, there are 16 agencies proposed. So I want to propose an amendment to add $1,800 to this proposal.
Let me ask a question about the motion. Are you including in your motion the $50 distribution among the other agencies, or is your motion really just the $800 addition?
Yeah, again, I don't know anything about the 50, but I'm proposing to add $800 to this proposal. So instead of $875, it would be $1,675. Instead of $11,225, it would be $12,025. And the adjustments to the agency allocations would be $50 greater than whatever each of those 16 are currently allocated. Is that clear enough, Chuck?
Well, it sounds to me as if you did put the 16 agencies back into your motion.
Yeah. It's $50 a piece for each of the agencies that the town is supporting.
There's 17, but
well, the list is 16. It doesn't have RSVP. I counted 3 times, and it seems to be 16. Times 50 is $800. Right. That's right. In Article 10, there's that.
How many do you get, Pam?
I mean, if you take out RSVP, there are 16.
If you take out RSVP, Pam says there are then 16.
Correct. Very good.
Well, okay, that was just an attempt to clarify the motion. So I should ask now, is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Stan, please identify yourself.
Ed Anthes.
Second from Ed Anthes. Pardon?
Shall I speak to my second?
Yes, you may.
The clarity that came to me during Cliff's presentation was that the original motion put forward as an article states specific amounts for those 8 agencies. Cliff's amendment, which I'm seconding, gives an additional $50 to each one of those 8 agencies named, and $50 to each of the unnamed agencies which are also supported by the town.
I count 9 in Article 10. There are 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There are 9.
There are 9 in Article 10, Pam says, and she's pretty good with numbers, so maybe we should... 9 is correct.
Okay.
Plus 8 more?
Plus 7 more?
Plus 7 more.
I don't trust Cliff. I don't trust him.
Because this is becoming a somewhat contentious matter, I'm going to try to go back and forth between people that are in favor and those who are against, which is what I'm told moderators are supposed to do. So we'll have one comment back there on the left, and then depending what it is, we'll know where to go with the next one.
Lester Dingley. I don't like this amendment. I'd like to just get our budget back to simple, give the select board a clear the slate so they can make decisions when they want to, if they want to. So we just eliminate his amendment and eliminate the proposal, the article itself, clear up a lot of crap that's going on. So that's where I'm coming from. I'm going to vote against this amendment and the article itself. So right back what the select board chose to do at the very beginning.
Okay. Is there someone who wants to speak in favor of the amendment? And confine your remarks to the amendment, because that's what's on the floor at the moment. I don't see anybody, so is there any further discussion of the amendment, which is to add $800 to the number proposed in Article 10, which would bring it to $1,675. Distributed, if I understand it right, among the 9 here and 7 more, as mentioned on the blue sheet, which is a rather strange notion, but anyway. So all those in favor of the amendment to add the 1,670.
Like copper paper ballot on the amendment, please.
We need seven people to support this notion, and so would you, if you're in favor of a paper ballot on the amendment, this is not on the main motion, it's just on the amendment, would you please rise so I may count you? I see 1, 2, 3, 4. I see 4. Oh, 1. Raise your hands too so I can see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, we're above 7. Paper ballot? Yes. Oh boy. It's too late, isn't it? Okay. Hold on. It may be a slight bending of the rules, but not bending of state law. So if there's no objection, we will allow the mover of the amendment to withdraw the proposal. And if I don't hear any objections to that, then we do not need a paper ballot. But I see a hand raised in the middle, back.
John Warren, I'm not sure about it, but it seems to me that the withdrawal of a motion requires the agreement of the seconder as well.
It may very well. So what does the seconder have to say?
I support the idea that over time, Dummerston increases its contribution to these agencies, but in the interest of time today, I withdraw my second.
The second has been, the amendment has been withdrawn. We're back to the main motion.
Oh, may I speak to the main motion?
And we have a speaker. What?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Okay, so if we're back to the main motion, the select board on a divided vote level funded the social services advisory amount this year. We tried to level fund or cut everything. Very few non-discretionary portions of our budget receive more funding. The fire department receives more funding. This was a difficult issue for the board, I think, for some of the board. It's one of the, I think it's the most contentious issue that comes before the board. Some people feel very strongly that they don't want to be taxed to make these contributions. So I consulted my magic 8-ball that I keep with me. And I can see that the Social Services Advisory amount is going to increase, probably next year, is what my magic 8-ball said. So the majority of the board was in favor of trying to level fund the budget this year. And so, speaking for the majority, I would urge that we defeat the Article 10 and go with the amount that was approved earlier in the budget.
This may be the first time in the history of Dummerston that a magic ball has been consulted. No, it's not the first time. I hear, okay, another veteran says it.
I had a magic 8-ball app.
Oh. He's right up to date with Google or Apple or one of those outfits. All right, we're back to the main motion, and we just heard an argument to defeat the motion, and yes, right front.
Hi, I'm Tom O'Dad, and I find myself quite surprised to want to speak in favor of adding to a budget item that the select board has so laboriously come to. I spent enough time in those chairs and had enough budget meetings to know that the numbers that end up in our town report are extremely well thought out. There's not an arbitrary number among them. There's very difficult choices that are made to get there. And I always found it difficult to sit up there at town meeting when someone tried to change one of those numbers with the benefit of an argument that only takes place in this room. That said, this has been an issue, as Zeke said, that has been a conundrum for the select board since I have been, was a part of it. I was on the board when the Social Services Committee was conceived and appointed, because it used to be all of these various agencies just used to come at us with their requests, and it was so hard to sort through them and know who deserved what. So we found the Social Services Committee, or charged them with sorting through it, as Rita very well described how they do that. And then they came back to the board with some clean recommendations. These are the agencies, these are the amounts that we would recommend. And I think, almost without exception, the board has pretty much level funded it, but distributed it in the manner that the committee has recommended. I don't recall ever overriding their recommendations on the distribution of it, but the amount was always left up to the select board. Now, the problem with doing a budget for the town is that so much of it is beyond our control. The dump fees, the county assessment, our health insurance, and you can't say no to that stuff. And that stuff goes up every year, and every time that goes up, you have to look at all your discretionary stuff, the stuff you do have control over. And if you want to have a level budget, which was always our goal, and it still is the goal, obviously, you gotta cut something that you used to have. Now you go to the road and you want to cut the highway maintenance, and we have consistently asked them to do more with less. And every time you turn to one of these discretionary items, whether it be the fire department or the library or something, you get a room full of people that shows up telling you why you shouldn't do that. And when you cut the social services budget, nothing happens. You send Morningside Shelter $600 instead of $800, you get a nice thank you note for the $600. So it's one of those cuts that has no consequences, immediate consequences, in your face consequences. And the argument I would like to make for it is that this is a very imperfect way to fund these agencies. I agree with those who have made the argument this is not what government should be doing. We talked about that many years ago. Should we be giving any of this money at all? We did not want in this game, but the game exists. We do play it. We are the 7th team on the roster, as has been pointed out. If we are really fundamentally opposed to funding these social service agencies this way, we should zero this budget, take those consequences, have that argument with our neighboring towns, and work out another way to do that. Now, chances are the consequences that it will become a mandatory thing. It will be taken over by the state or the county, and we'll end up paying for it anyway. In Alaska, where I lived for many years, the towns are too spread apart. You can't go to the next town to get a senior meal like you can here because the next town's 80 miles away. So all of these services had to exist in each of those little towns, but each of those little towns couldn't afford to fund them any more than Dummerston could have all these agencies of their own. So the borough government, which would be our county, or the state paid for them, and we were all taxed for them, and somebody pays for it anyway. So this is the way, somehow before our time, it was decided that the towns were going to pay a little bit of what these agencies need to operate on. Now, if we don't believe in the game, we shouldn't be playing it. But if we're in the game, we should do our part. We are drafting behind the generosity of people just like us. People are struggling economically all throughout these 7 towns. It's not just in Dummerston. And therefore, the grace of God, any one of us in this room or people we love will end up needing the services of these agencies, and I think we should do our part. Now, our budget stops at our town boundaries, our communities do not, and our responsibilities do not. And I think that we should increase this. It's a modest increase to at least start to gain ground on where our neighboring towns are with their giving. Thank you.
Is there someone who wants to speak in opposition who has not spoken before? First, before I call on you, Mark, is there somebody else who's opposed to this and wants to speak? If not, Mark may speak again. Oh, wait, sorry. Oh, okay, far left. Thanks.
Carrie Chapman. I support what the select board came out with for a number. One of these organizations, HCRS, we asked for another $200 on here. They're the same ones that just had an audit done because they gave $650,000 for a retirement package, $400,000 to start. When she came back to the board to say, well, look what I'm going to pay for my taxes, we'll give you another $250,000. So we're funding our state money, our federal money, and the town money into HCRS, and we've just given away $650,000 for retirement. I can't support this. I think, personally, if we want to give charity, we open our checkbook up and send it. I don't think the town should be giving out our tax money.
Somebody in favor want to speak? Or have we reached the end of the discussion? Oh, here in the front, please. Did you see somebody else?
I just have one clarification.
Okay, okay. Right after.
Jonathan Flax. I'm struck by the discrepancy between the...
A little louder, Jonathan.
I'm struck by the discrepancy between those who make so much and those who make so little. This is an issue which really should be voluntary, ideally. Those who can afford it can kick in $20 or $50 and let the select board divvy up any way they want. I don't know if this is practical, but if a letter went out to all property owners saying what the facts are in this blue sheet, if half the people were to donate twice what we're asking for here individually, we come out with the same amount of money, and there wouldn't be the resentment between those who can afford to contribute and those who can generously contribute.
Thank you. Steve has a matter of clarification.
Just a point. We did spend a lot of time on this, and Louis actually spent a lot of time on this. And when we talk about us being the 7th down the list, we also got to remember that Dummerston has Dummerston Community Chest and Dummerston Cares, I don't know that their figures are included when we talk about us being the 7th one down the list. So I don't want people to think that we're not a giving community, because those two places give a lot of money and people give to them through charity. And I'll comment too, I have to think that charity you write the check for, you're not taxed for. So I feel badly that we have to tax people to give the money away. But again, I think Dummerston gives far more money than just this particular item in our budget.
That was, in effect, an argument against the motion, so that's all right. I'll entertain something in favor of the motion. Back, right there. Thank you.
John Warren, I think that's beside the point. The question was not how much Dummerston as a community gives in all forms, but rather how much Dummerston gives as a town through the taxes that we allocate to that.
And are there any other comments in, opposition? Are you speaking against? Are you speaking?
Call the question.
I didn't see any other hands, did you, before Bruce? I don't think so. All right, had there been other hands up before that was called, I would call on, but I didn't see any. So the motion to call the question is in.
I think Mark might have had his hand up. Mark had his hand up before Ruth did.
Did he? Okay, then we'll come right back to yours, Ruth, after Mark has spoken.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. In respect to the previous comments by Mr. Warren, I think those are out of text for the simple fact that Dummerston Community Chest is part of our team, if you want to talk in team terms. So just because you're using different players doesn't mean the team's not strong. So to eliminate that and get this question out as well. I am always baffled when people have to compare themselves to neighbors. Keeping up with the Joneses has never been a priority on my list. I beat my own drum and travel my own path. And I think that everybody has the right to do that. They should do that. I personally don't care what Putney, Guilford, Vernon did to anything. It's none of our business. I think that's a bad card to play. You're playing on a sympathetic card. And the one thing I left for my previous time to talk was I did do the math on this that I done last year for the added amount. Now, when people sign the petition, 103 people signed the petition that got this on this article on the warning. You 103 people go home tonight, open up that checkbook. You write that check for $8.50. You get that straw off of my back and the other broke taxpayers, and you raise $875.50 without putting any more burden on the overburdened taxpayer in town. Thank you.
And the microphone back to Ruth, who didn't really have a chance to stand and give her name and all of that. So if she would do that.
I just simply want to
Your name?
Ruth Barr.
Oh, okay.
Is there anybody here who doesn't know who I am? I'm the biggest number.
That's completely beside the point when it comes to the rules of this game.
I still want to call the question.
Just, you've now done it. You've called the question. It does require a second. It's seconded by Harold Newell. There is no debate, and it must be a 2/3 vote to carry. So, and I think technically...
This is for the,
to
call the motion.
Never mind, okay. So it's, all those in favor of calling the question, please raise your hand because I think we're supposed to do it that way. I think we have 2/3. All right, we're back to the main motion then. Not amended, but just as it reads, which is to see if the voters will vote to raise, appropriate, and expend the sum of $875 to increase the total health and welfare line item in the proposed 2016 general fund budget from $10,350 to $11,225 with the line item allocations in the budget changed as you see printed in the rest of the motion. All those in favor, please say, oh, sorry, yes.
I would now like to call for a paper ballot, please.
Well, that's a legitimate question. We need 7 people. Are there 7 people in favor of a paper ballot? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yep, we got enough. Paper ballot it is. The paper ballots have been tabulated, and the results are no 39, yes 66.
Thank you, Chuck. A couple of people came up and asked, oh, I guess I don't need to say this now. A couple of people had asked, can they make a contribution to the town of Dummerston and stipulate that the select board distribute it to the health and welfare recipients, but I guess that's a moot point now, isn't it? So, no? Okay, then I'll spell that out. If you would like to increase the health and welfare giving of the town of Dummerston yourself as an individual, I'm told by the treasurer that you can send a check to the town of Dummerston, make it clear in the memo line and with a note that your intention is that those dollars go toward increasing the health and welfare distributions to the organizations we support. And Zeke says that as chair of the select board, he feels that the select board would honor your intent and distribute the dollars that you contribute as an individual as directed. Okay? All right. So we are on page 59, Article 11, to see if the voters will grant tax-exempt status to the Evening Star Grange for a period of 1 year pursuant to the provisions of Title 32, Section 3840.
Madam Moderator, I move that we grant tax-exempt status to the Evening Star Grange for a period of 1 year pursuant to the provisions of Title 32, Section 363840. Sorry. 3840.
There's a second from Mary Ann. Mary Ellen Copeland? Sorry. I did. Sorry. Any discussion on this? Any questions? Microphone up here, please. Could you stand if you're able, Rick?
Thanks, Rick Mills. I want to thank Dummerston Grange for putting together a good lunch today. Thank you very much.
Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, the motion has been moved and seconded to grant tax-exempt status to the Evening Star Grange for a period of 1 year pursuant to provisions of Title 32, Section 3840. All in favor of the article signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? No. The motion carries. Article 12, to see if the voters will grant tax-exempt status to Green Mountain Camp for a period of 1 year, pursuant to the provisions of Title 32, Section 3840.
My name is Mark Brown. I move that the voters grant tax exemption status to Green Mountain Camp for a period of 1 year, pursuant to provisions of Title 32, Section 3840.
Is there a second?
Second.
Chad Farnham, I saw your hand first. The article has been moved and seconded to grant tax-exempt status to Green Mountain Camp for a period of 1 year pursuant to the provisions of Title 32, Section 3840. Mark, would you like to speak to this?
Sure, I'd love to speak just quickly. In case you haven't noticed, there is a report on page 26 that Billy Slade wrote for you, and sums up our successful year this past year, and also points out that 6 of her staff were Dummerston girls, and that the board, in coordination with local organizations like the Dummerston Center Congregational Church, I see Suzanne is here, I want to thank them. But anyway, we work hard to make sure that any girl, local girl especially, who wants to come to camp can afford to get there. There's a list of people like the Congregational Church in her report who are here. I'd like to mention them. Chad is a younger version of me, probably in future years. He's my hero. Maybe he'll be up here speaking. He's much more eloquent than I am. Sam Barlow has helped out a lot. He's around. Richard Epstein, he was here. Don't worry about it. There's a couple of people that Billy said that she forgot to mention, so I'm going to add to the list a little bit. Travis Bristol, David Shaw, Charlie Richardson, who just came out of the voting booth, Eileen Cristallo, Kelton, Christina Naylor, Trapper Frechette, and anyway, there's been a lot of people, a lot of local people that have helped, and it's also, we're getting close. We've been in operation since 1917, so we're really looking towards our 100th year anniversary and started some planning. So if any of you are alumni, we're trying to get all of those people organized too, or everybody. So keep an eye out for the activity and vote for the what do you call it? Tax exempt status.
Any questions, discussion? Yes, right there.
Just one comment.
Your name, please?
Bess Richardson.
Thank you.
We have a granddaughter who is 8. She's been going to Green Mountain Camp, and she loves Green Mountain Camp. If she had her way, she would be there all summer. So if you've got grandchildren, your granddaughters or daughters, send them to Green Mountain Camp. It's a great experience.
Any further debate? Seeing none, are you ready for the question? You are voting to grant tax-exempt status to Green Mountain Camp for a period of 1 year. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, no. The motion carries. Thank you. Article 13, to see if the town will approve the closing of the West River Crossings Fund and transfer the balance of $7.20 into the Highway Structures Fund.
Madam Chair, I move that the town approve the closing of the West River Crossings Fund and transfer a balance of $7.20 into the Highway Structures Fund.
Is there a second? Harold seconds. Thank you. It has been moved and seconded to close the West River Crossings Fund and transfer the balance of $7.20 into the Highway Structures Fund. Any explanation needed? Any questions? This is a big one, folks. All in favor of the motion as stated, signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The motion carries. Article 14, to see if the town will approve changing the February tax collection date from the 5th to the 20th.
Madam Moderator, I move that we, Madam Moderator, I move that we change the February tax collection date from the 5th of February to the 20th of February.
Is there a second? And then Pam will tell you why. I saw Mark's hand first, Mark Whitaker. So the motion has been made and seconded to change the February tax collection date from the 5th to the 20th.
it really shouldn't be a complicated one, so the simple answer is so it matches the August 20th date. But we've also given it some thought, and we will be able to have town reports available by the 20th of February, so if you're a person who comes in and likes to pay their taxes by check, you can pick up your town report then, and we'll spend that much less on postage. But basically, that's the real reason, and we probably should have done it when we did the August 5th, but I didn't know how much change I could do all at once, so that's why.
I'm not hearing a downside to this. Any concerns, any questions? Yes, Calvin. Could you wait for the mic, Calvin, and start with your name? Thank you.
Calvin Farrell. I just want to point out that in the transition year, there will be a loss of interest. We came that into consideration.
Perhaps offset by the $7.20 we just moved around. Any other concerns? All right, the motion has been made and seconded to change the February tax collection date from the 5th to the 20th. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The date is changed. Article 15, to transact any other business that may legally come before said town meeting. I would like to start by asking, is Winnie Vogt still in the room? Yes. It was suggested, and I enthusiastically agree, that we should recognize Winnie Vogt. She may not be a Dummerston resident in the future, but will in our hearts forever for all the things that she has done for this town and the people in it. Thank you, Winnie.
But we didn't know that Dummerston existed as a community until we had to pay taxes. And that's what I found out about the Dummerston church. I couldn't believe I was paying taxes in the church. You didn't do that in New Jersey. So anyway, and of course, we said we pay taxes here. We've got to go to visit the church. And been a member ever since. So it's been a privilege. It's a privilege to be in this town. I love it. And I'm only going to Riley House because I'm an old lady now and I fall down and it's safer for me to be down there. But I'll be around to bother you.
I was also asked to point out by someone who had to leave before Article 15 that there are some postcards in the back addressed to the governor and stamped on which you can indicate your feelings about the gun legislation that's being considered right now. Who else has something they'd like to present? Mary Ellen? Oh, get you next. Use the mic and tell us who you are.
Things about the Conservation Commission.
Your name?
Mary Ellen Copeland,
Thanks.
and I'm the chair of the Dummerston Conservation Commission. I'd like to start by a campaign that we have going right now that's really important. Ed, could you come up? We want every one of you, if you see this beetle, we want you to be watching. And if you see this beetle, we want you to report it right away. Actually, that's enlarged. If you see what happened, we're really in trouble. But that's the Asian longhorn beetle. And it is not far from here, and it has the capacity to wipe out our maple trees. And so when you leave, please, there's a picture out there, there's bookmarks, there's all kinds of things to and to tell you who to report to. If you even think you find something that looks like that, you should report it. So that's really, really important. I also want to, we've been talking here a lot about fundraising. The Dummerston Conservation Commission realized that it couldn't do the important work that it has before it without more funds, and so we began we're in the midst of a very successful fundraising campaign. I want to thank everybody who has donated so far, and we'll be in touch with more of you over time. We're doing this gradually, but it's allowing us to do the important work that we do, and a big part of that has to do with things like the Asian longhorn beetle. We've been working on the hemlock woolly adelgid because we have that coming in. It has the capacity to destroy our hemlock trees. We've been the site of a study that has to do with that. We're concerned about the emerald ash borer, which is very, very close, which could take out our ash trees. We've already done a study to see how many ash trees there are along the road that might be a real danger if those trees die, that we need to take them down. And so Lynn Levine and Betsy Whitaker have been driving around the roads counting those trees so that they can let the select board know so we're ready when we have to remove those trees. So we have projects like that going on all the time. We're inventorying the all of the botany. John Anderson, I'm sure many of you have seen him out looking. He's found a variety of rare plants, and sometimes the rest of us help. And those are some of the plants in Dummerston. There's only a few sites where those exist in the state, and we're working to protect those. We have educational programs going on all the time. We've heard that this is, I guess, the year of water, so we're having a program on fish and salamanders. We're doing land management. We're doing native plants. We're working on controlling invasives, particularly in the forest pests, and we're hoping to do a program on how you set up your land so that it attracts birds. So we're doing lots and lots of educational work. We're providing stewardship for Prospect and Dutton Pines, Black Mountain. We have town trails. We've just come out with a nice town trail map. And you can get that town trail map on our website, which is dummerstonconservation.com. It's a very great website that Betsy Whitaker does. And we have emails. You should be on our email list. We send out emails to advise you of all of our programs, all of the programs we have, but also programs throughout the area that have to do with the environment. This is not, the environment is regional, it's not local, and so we want you to know what's going on everywhere. We've also got a nice list. We've got over 500 people on the list of people that we let know when things are happening, and so you should be on that list. It's a good list. And there's a blog too, so that you can report what you're finding as you out around exciting things, and there's almost every day somebody is reporting something on that blog. So that's what we do at the Dummerston Conservation Commission, and I wanted to let you know and thank you for your support.
Anyone else? Over here, please. Can we have a hand for our mic runners today? Jesse and Brad, really.
I'm Dave Patrick, and I'm one of the trustees of the library, the Lydia Patrick, a.k.a. Town Library. This has been a big year for us. This is the 100th anniversary of the library in this town. And it's grown from somebody's closet to a bigger closet in the West Village, Grange Hall, into a schoolroom. And so we're quite proud of where it's gone, and we hope that it will continue to serve the community in this capacity. We did have a celebration this year, and I wanted to tell you a little about it because it was fun. It was intended to be fun, and it was fun. Beautiful sunny day, the day of our annual geranium sale. We had a parade. It went all the way from the West Dummerston Fire Station all the way over to the library. And when we got to the library, we had the chairman of the select board here. He made a presentation and awarded us with a certificate, which now resides in the library. Tom Zoff gave us a history of the library, which is quite interesting. We presented an award to one of the retiring trustees, Sherwood Smith. And then we had Sandblast, had a tent, and they had a puppet show. which was really fun for everybody, the kids sitting in front and the adults standing and laughing in the back. The other thing that happened this year that I guess most of us weren't prepared for is we're going digitized. We got a grant from the Ascade Foundation to help us do this, to install the equipment and provide for the program. And all of our books now are slowly being digitized and put into a website. That website you can find in some of your places. You have cards, little sheets that tell you where the website is, and you can search to see what the holdings are. We don't have them all entered yet. We're working at it. It's a chore. It's really a big chore. So that is that. As you know, we have up back here a little card here who has some book bags. They're really good book bags. They're not little chintzy ones. They're really sturdy ones, and we'd be happy to sell you one of them. A find a couple of years ago was our new librarian, Karen LaRue. And she has really been a big help to us. She also happens to be a librarian on Mtg. So we share her with the two towns. Just a word about volunteers. This whole town runs pretty much on volunteer power. And the library is no exception. Besides the trustees, we have the friends. We have people like Natasha Clark, who come in to get their service hours for their high school time, who come in to help. And all of these things are put together to make it possible for us to run. Good man. Thank you. So, also, we want to add our thanks to Winnie Boat, because we're going to miss her around meetings. She's been a fixture. She always has great ideas, and she's always full of fun and things to talk about. And Winnie, we're really going to miss you. Finally, we want to extend our thanks to the folks at the town office. They've really been a huge help to us, and they keep us honest, actually. And you don't know what honest is until you talk about transparency. So I don't want to talk about transparency. You know, the other day, it's her fault. So I'm worried about that. And we thank all of you for supporting the library.
Anyone else?
Mary Lou.
Mary Ellen? Oh, Jesse? Okay, go ahead. Well, I'm sorry, we'll get to you next. Susanna for now.
I'm Susanna Griffin, pastor of the Dummerston Congregational Church. And I wanted just to say my thanks that there is still a church in the center. It's only by grace and through the wonderful efforts of neighbors that that's true. So I did want to thank Patty Blumgren, who saw the fire and called the fire department, and the fire department who got there so fast and worked so carefully and minimized the damage to the structure and to the furnishings. And from the bottom of my heart to thank Mo Momini and his son, who driving past at 10:30 at night saw flames running up the front wall of the sanctuary, ran in, grabbed the fire extinguisher and knew how to use it. Without that, I do believe we would have been looking at a hole in the ground. And I'm just so grateful. I don't know if Mo's here, but when you see him, thank him. It's just, we have been so lucky. Thank you.
Over here, Bram, Mary Lou, next to Bill. There she is.
I have a book available, The History of Dummerston, 1884, and if anybody's interested, they can see me. It's advertised in the News. The price that you see in there is negotiable.
Mary Lou Schmidt, thank you. And in the middle here? Thanks, Bram.
My name is Ray Nello,
and I'm the chair trustees at the Dummerston Church. I just wanted to thank the community for the contributions they made. We had a $60,000 fire, and with your help, we came out in the black. So thank you very much.
Great.
I'm Chuck Fish, and I just wanted to say a word for the Dummerston Historical Society. Most of you know, but perhaps not everybody, that we own the schoolhouse building next to the town office in Dummerston Center. We own the building, the town owns the land. The town has very generously agreed to allow us to add on to our building, in exchange for which they will use the larger meeting space when they need it in our building. And we, and this is a great blessing, will have access to the restroom in the town office building for our meetings. So we are now in the process of waiting for estimates from 5 local construction companies as to what it would cost to add on to the building. We hope that they're very frugal in their figuring, and if they come in with a price we can work with. So we're really looking forward to the extension. And we're grateful to all the people in town who have supported us one way or another. We welcome you as members, and members or not, we welcome you to our exhibits and to our programs. So we hope to see you in another year in a much larger building. Thank you.
Zeke up front here.
I'm Zeke again, and I just wanted to take a moment to thank a few more people. I'll try to be brief, but Janice Duke is not running for auditor again this time, so she's been auditor for a while and done a great job, and if you would show your appreciation for her work. Bill Conway I don't think he's here right now, but he has been on the Energy Committee since I believe it began, and he's not going to be a member again this coming year. So he's put in a lot of voltage into that organization. So. You've probably heard, or if you've been to the town office, you've seen the beautiful job that Bill Holliday, David Lane, David Sear, Carol Bissett, Yvonne Harrison, Mitchell Flood, and Pam McFadden painted the interior of the town office, and they did a beautiful job. So. And maybe we could just do a motion from the floor, but I think we could award them the bid to the community center. They really gave us a good deal on it. What?
The exterior of the schoolhouse needs painting too.
Yeah, well, and you know, Bill Holliday, David Sear, they got the summers off, so if you want to book them now. And then, Lewis White is not running for re-election this year, to the relief of some, to the consternation of others, but he's always made our meetings interesting, and he's worked hard for the town. And you know, the select board is also the liquor commission in town, and Lewis just had an affinity for being a liquor commissioner. It was remarkable. I don't know if we're going to be able to continue on without him, so we may have to have him as a consultant. But the board and Pam and Lori, we chipped in, and you know, so we could apply his liquor commission expertise at a local watering hole. That's all I have.
Everybody? Thank you, Zeke. Thank you, Lewis. Anybody else? Seeing no hands, I will entertain. Oh, sorry, Sam.
Sam Carwell, very quickly. As chair of the Planning Commission, please be aware of our public hearing a month from today, first Tuesday in April, church basement at 7 o'clock. We're proposing changes to the bylaw. That's your backyard, what you can and can't do with your own land. Be warned. Don't say nobody told you. We have been trying to get the word out as much as possible. So if you don't know about it,
it's your own
okay, and tell your neighbors. We have a meeting a week from tomorrow, which we would love you to come and ask questions so you can learn all about it. We'd rather not you come to the hearing not knowing anything about it. The hearing is for you to come tell us what you think, not for us to explain to you. So educate yourself and practice democracy. Thank you.
I will entertain a motion to adjourn the town meeting portion of the day.
So moved.
Zeke moves. Is there a second? Second. All in favor of adjourning the town meeting portion, say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. We'll take just a moment to swap these guys out for the school board. Thank you. Calling to order the meeting of the Dummerston Town School District. Article 1, electing all necessary officers for the ensuing year is done by Australian ballot. You ready? Yep. Article 2, to act on the auditor's report of the town school district.
Good afternoon, guys. I move that the auditor's report of the town school district accounts be accepted as printed.
Is there a second? Second? Bob Tuba, is that his name? Seconded? The motion has been made and seconded to that the auditor's report of the town school district be accepted as printed. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion on the floor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? No. The motion carries. Underage voters in the back, hold your tongue. Thank you. Article 3, to see if the town school district will authorize its school board to accept and expend categorical grants and aid received from the state of Vermont and the U.S. government.
I move that the town school district authorize its board to accept and expend categorical grants and aid received from the state of Vermont and the United States government.
Is there a second? Seconded by Bob again. It has been moved and seconded that the town school district authorize its select board to accept and expend categorical grants and aid received from the state of Vermont and the United States government. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion on the floor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The motion carries. Article 4. To see what salaries the town school district will vote to pay its officers and directors.
My name is Dan Normando. I move that the town school district vote to pay its officers and directors salaries in the amount of $500 each for a total of $2,500.
And is there a second? Bob does again. It has been moved and seconded that the town school district vote to pay its officers and directors salaries in the amount of $500 each for a total of $2,500. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion on the floor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? No. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The motion carries. Article 5, to see if the town school district will vote to appropriate a sum of money to defray its expenses and liabilities for the period of July 1st, 2015 to June 30th, 2016, and if so, in what amount? If adopted, the portion of this total sum to be raised by taxes to be only that portion not received from revenues from other sources.
Amy Wall, I move that the town school district vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $3,245,829.00 to defray its expenses and liabilities for the period of July 1st, 2015 and June 30th, 2016, If adopted, the portion of this total sum to be raised by taxes to be only that portion not received from revenues from other sources.
Is there a second? Bob again. It has been moved and seconded that the town school district vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $3,245,829 to defray its expenses and liabilities for the period of July 1st, 2015 to June 30th, 2016. If adopted, the portion of this sum to be raised by taxes to be only that portion not received from revenues from other sources. Amy, do you want to present this?
I do.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm going to start us on page 37. And before I do that, I just have to say this is probably one of the most unremarkable school budgets that I've had the pleasure of presenting to you over the years. It's pretty much plain Jane. There's nothing really significant in it. So I'm going to start on page 37. We'll look at the revenue budget first. And I'll go through and highlight just some different line items, and when we get through a section, if you have a question, let me know. So we'll start under local revenues. The first thing to note there is tuition. We expect to have 2 tuition students next year. That'll be providing a little bit of additional income. Like we have in previous years, building rentals. The elementary intensive program for the supervisory union uses some facilities here, so they'll be paying some rent for that. And the Title IIA sub-grant monies, that is money that we would use to help pay for our literacy and academic coaches here at the school. Under the state portion, just of note is the small school grant. It's a little over $34,000, and that's anticipated to continue to decrease as it has, well, over the years. And it is right now just an estimate. And does anybody have any question about revenues? Okay, we'll go.
Did you explain why, Did you explain why under SU services help it went down to $17,000 from $34,900?
That is, and Frank maybe can correct me, but that is money that we used to help pay for our nurse, and I believe part of her money is paid for, the expenses for her position are paid for by the elementary intensive program. There's also been some diminishing federal and state monies, so I think that really represents just a shift of available funds.
That's correct.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, we'll go on to expenditures, and that starts at the bottom of the same page. We didn't really have any changes in assemblies per se. I mean, we reduced that a little bit. Guidance, no changes there. Pretty much the status quo on page 38 with health services, the school nurse, psychological counseling. And that is, the psychological counseling is for outside services, not for the stuff that the services that the SU provides. Library is the same. If you go on to 39, page 39, under technology services, the fifth item down, technology integration, that was an item we had listed at $30,000 for last year. We had hoped to add a position to help our staff and students incorporate more technology into our school. Unfortunately, we didn't get to do that last year. We needed another grade 1 teacher. So that person for technology wasn't hired, and we aren't in the position this year to make that hire like we would like to. So we have allotted only $5,000 for that line item for some hours through a contracted service. So that's that big change. So, and then the other item there under technology, the last line for hardware lease, that's the our sort of revolving replenishment of laptops, the Chromebooks. Excuse me. There are no changes for the rest of page 39 or 40. If you go on to page 41, under food service, we did decrease our subsidy there. Last year we changed, or actually for this school year, we changed food service vendors, and it's been going very well. I think last we heard we had like 70–80% participation, which helps make the program a little more, for lack of a better word, profitable, because they're never really quite profitable, but we have to subsidize it less. So that's the decrease there from 20 to 13.5. And the elementary, we haven't, the only change there is that grade 1 teacher that we hired instead of the technology position last year, and that person was hired with the intent that they would only be here 1 year, and that is the case. We will not have a second first grade. We won't have 2 first grade teachers, so we will just have 1 teacher per grade for the K to 5 program. So that's represented under elementary. The paraprofessional salaries, that does reflect a reduction of 1 para, looking at the projected enrollment for next year and the needs of the students. That we didn't, Joe Carroll didn't feel that we needed as many paras, so that's a reduction there. If you go on to page 42, there's really not a whole lot of change there. Under secondary teacher salaries, near the middle portion of the page, you do see an increase from 170,000 to 191. That is not so much. It's more of a more accurate reflection of the allocation of teachers' times for particular grades, is really what's reflected, as well as an estimated increase in pay, because we are going to be entering contract negotiations with teachers, so we had to do our best guess. So it's a combination of those 2 things where we have a little better picture of what it's actually costing us in terms of the secondary program for this year, plus an estimated target for negotiating when it comes time for that. And let's see, page 43, under other programs, the preschool contracted services. That reflects our participation in the state's preschool average daily membership program. Allows us to count Dummerston preschoolers who are enrolled in participating programs, and there's about 9 of them, I believe, now in our area. So if you know of any preschoolers from town, they should maybe give the school a call and find out what preschool programs share this program with us. It allows us to count those students, and in turn we pass on some money from the state to those preschool programs that are used in 3 particular ways. One is for professional development, tuition reduction, and I forget what the other one is, program improvement. So it's a win-win. We get to count additional students, and the preschool programs get to a little extra income and improve their programs overall. Special education, there on the middle of page 43. If you remember from last year, as of last year, all special education expenses, excluding paraprofessional salaries and benefits, and local costs were shifted to the supervisory union level. So these special education expenses are ones that we take on as a school district here alone. And it is for paraprofessionals and some miscellaneous items. Down near the bottom of the page, the EEE, the Early Essential Education Program, that reflects Dummerston's assessment for EEE services. And those are services to Dummerston kids ages 3 to 5 who are enrolled in area preschools and state licensed preschool classrooms that may or may not have, developmental or special needs. On page 44, under bond payment, interest and special articles, we have some other items. We have the water planning debt and water project debt service. Those are for a project that started in 2005 due to changes in the water quality standards, federal water quality standards as they relate to arsenic. So it's sort of an ongoing cost for us. The Special Article 2014 Special Article roof, that is, I believe, the final expense for the roof repairs that were done as authorized back for fiscal year 2014. And the same thing for the Special Article lighting. It's our participation in incentive programs back in FY14 that allowed us to use monies that were available to us to upgrade lights and other electrical fixtures in the building, including these gym lights here for greater electrical efficiency. And the gym floor, that's the other one is the deficit reduction note, the 24,420. That is the third and final payment of a deficit reduction note from FY12 when we had a general fund deficit of a little over $57,000. We were able to take that and spread it over 3 years. So that is the final payment there. If you continue on down the page, you see WSESU assessment. Because of the changes in the mandated or mandates from the state, the total WSESU assessment is broken into two items. One is the one for administrative and support of instruction, and that includes Dummerston's portion of district administrative costs, curriculum development, and shared services like English as a second language and speech therapy. The second portion of the SU assessment is for special education, and that includes all certified staff. So that is the licensed teachers. It does not include paraprofessionals. So this includes our assessment, our Dummerston's portion of shared special education expenses. And then it gives us a time, if you add it all up, it gives us a total budget of $3,245,829. Excuse me. And I will take questions.
Any questions for Amy? Yes, Mike Fairbrand.
John Warner. Maybe, did I understand this correctly, that there's one fewer teacher this year?
Do you want to answer that, Mary Jo?
Yeah.
Can you talk?
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, we need one fewer teacher next year, because the teacher that we got this year, because the first grade class was so big, won't be here next year.
The second grade is not big.
It's not as big as it was coming into this school year.
Does that have to save in fact, as in financially? How does that show up in the budget?
It's not really savings because we didn't have it budgeted for this year's budget, so we had to take it from different line items.
Was that what you used the technology person money for? You had budgeted $30,000 for that person and instead used it for a teacher. Okay. Any other questions about the budget? Yes, back there, Calvin.
Hi, Calvin Foro. I need 3 hands for this operation. Okay, so page 41. It's going to get there. Then elementary substitute salaries. When I look at that, the last year for which we have facts, in other words, fiscal year 14, seems totally out of touch with reality. Or the budget seems totally out of touch with reality, but for the next 2 years we seem to persist in that touchness. When you flip the page over to page 42 and look at the secondary substitute salaries, that too, the year that we have facts for, that's fiscal year 2014, is horribly smaller than what was budgeted. So I'm just wondering what's going on there. Were those numbers just sort of drawn out of a nightmare somewhere, or is there some rationale behind these figures?
There is rationale. Excuse me. They might have had some issues with coding in the past, in allocating the expenses for the substitutes. That might, every year we try and clean that up, but it doesn't quite happen. There's somebody else who talk.
Does that answer your question, Calvin? Okay. Joe Carroll?
Year fiscal year 14, twice as much was spent on substitutes as was budgeted. But then we continue to lowball the estimate for the next 2 years.
I think the increase in the elementary portion of it had to do with a medical leave that had taken place that year, which made it much higher than it would normally have been. And I also think with the secondary substitutes versus the elementary, sometimes they don't get a secondary absent might go to an elementary line item instead of to where it should have gone. So if you were to average it out, it might be more in line than if you keep it with just secondary.
That would be a little bit more in line, but not very much. I did that.
Okay. So then I suspect it had more to do with the medical leave.
So I'll be watching these very carefully in the next 2 years.
We all thank you, Calvin. Any other questions about the budget? Comments, concerns? Yes, Dan.
My name is Dan Normando. Well, I know it might be enticing to look at these line by line, and I don't disagree with you, Calvin. That does jump out in this fairly boring budget. But I would like to focus on the fact that we kept this budget with an increase of 0.3% compared to last year, which is very frustrating for most of us that we can't include the things we need to, and we're trying to be cognizant of true level funding, not just level service. So I would ask that everybody try to focus on the bottom line. Thank you.
Yes. Up here, Bram?
Name James, and I don't remember what page it's on, but I'm just curious about the $30,000 that gets set aside for early education, preschool services. I know that it was kind of broken down, but from a parent who was recently paying for preschool for 2 children, I know that we got a credit from the state because we did fill out the appropriate paperwork. That credit was a few $100s, and so looking at this is $30,000 for 9 students. Do we have any control on how that's handled or distributed, or is this sent down from state discussions? I think, yes.
I'll try again here. We have no control how the preschool program uses the money, but the contract that they sign with us does dictate that they use it in any of the 3 ways per the contract. So tuition reduction, professional development, and program improvement. So maybe they took that money and divvied it out in various ways to enrich their program. But
how do we get to 30,000? Like, is that just sort of
usually we have 6 to 10 students that participate, and it's about $3,000 a student.
That answer your question, May? Okay. Anybody else? Gurudaram?
My name is Gurudaram Khalsa, and I didn't quite understand the explanation for the teachers' salaries that went up $20,000 in the budget, but there was 1 less teacher. So I'm just looking for a clarification on that.
Are you talking about elementary or
No, I'm looking at
secondary?
secondary teachers' salary.
Do you want to let Frank answer that, or you're good?
Frank, you want to try?
Sure.
Okay.
It's a good question, and I understand why it's not easily understood. It stems from initially the comparison year that you're looking at does not include a position that was hired. So what we're doing here is looking at budget to budget. Okay, fiscal year 16 budget versus fiscal year 15. And when fiscal year 15 is missing a assumption for a staffing position, it creates this sort of explanation. So we can step through it, I think, and we do have to take both the elementary teaching position and the secondary together, because it is a group of employees that in fiscal year 15, some were assigned to the elementary position, K-6, okay? And in fiscal year 16, we assigned 3 positions to the secondary. So you're zeroing in on probably 3 or 4 variables that are not as clear if we were able to go back and essentially restate the budget. It wouldn't be as difficult to follow, but you've got a reallocation between grades K through 6 into grades 7 and 8. So that's creating the $20,000 increase, and then we have the absence of about $30,000 in fiscal year 15 under the elementary budget. It wasn't planned. It was a higher subsequent to the budget development. I hope that helps.
Any other questions? Are you ready to vote?
Oh, can I just
yes.
talk through the talks?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No,
Sure,
I
go
forgot.
ahead.
So I'll just say this quickly before I start hacking away again. If you go to page 47, it talks about the tax rate. And once again this year, Dummerston was not over the cap, so we will not incur any additional penalties. It's sort of one of those magical times when all the stars seem to align, and even though our equalized pupil number is decreasing, the common level of appraisal went up. And we were able to work with the budget enough to stay below the cap and not incur penalties, and maintain the kind of the quality programming we enjoy here in Dummerston. So if you go down to the bottom of the page 47, you'll see that our CLA adjusted tax rate is going to be $1.76 roughly, which is about 3 cents lower than last year. So that's the good news this year.
Are you ready for the question, or is there further discussion? Okay, the motion on the floor is that the town school district vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $3,245,829 to defray its expenses and liabilities for the period of July 1st, 2015 to June 30th, 2016. If adopted, the portion of this total sum to be raised by taxes to be only that portion not received from revenues from other sources. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? No. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and you have your school budget. Article 6, any other business?
We do have one piece of business.
Please.
Mr. Bob Tebow, would you please come forward? Bob was all upset because he didn't have a motion to read, but he did a good job at seconding everything. And I'm not going to be rude by not shaking your hand. I'm just going to not pass on whatever it is I have. So on behalf of the Supervisory Union, we want to recognize Robert Tebow's we want to recognize and express our appreciation for his dedication to the Dummerston Town School District during your 8 years of service. And then this is a little something from the Dummerston School.
Thank you very much.
Wow.
Any other business? If not, then I would entertain a motion to adjourn the school district meeting. Is there a second? Were you the second, and who moved? Ah, okay. All in favor of adjourning for the day? Aye, and opposed? The mic runners in the back are aye, aye, aye. Thanks so much, everyone. See you next year.